Chapter 68. The white crane flapped its wings and hovered in the air. Li Zongjio stood on the back of the white crane with his hands behind his back. He looked at the group of people in front of him. There were two figures standing on top of the mountain. One of them was holding a long blade and seemed to be the leader. The other was holding a long spear. Boom! The giant fiery red bird slowly spread its wings and floated in front of the mountain. At the same time, it threw the 100-mile archer god, who was so scared that he almost peed his pants, onto the mountain. As someone who had no wings and had never experienced flying before, the experience just now could be considered as soul-stirring. Level 2 Meta Beast? Fire Cloud Hawk. Li Zongjio's attention was on the Meta Beast. Behind the Fire Cloud Hawk stood a black-haired girl in white. She looked at Li Zongjio with deep eyes and vigilance. She was holding a scepter in her hand. If he was not wrong, the scepter should have a supplementary effect on mental strength. Mental Strength Master? Another Mental Strength Master. Li Zongjio could not help but be surprised. What kind of day was this? Mental Strength Masters were popping up one after another. Kid, come down. I want to fight you one-on-one. How dare you be so arrogant? Come down if you have the guts. Old Black was also angered by Li Zongjio. He had never seen such an arrogant person who dared to behave so atrociously in front of him. Wasn't his name, the 100-mile archer god, an insult? Are you bandits or robbers? Li Zongjio said. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it clearly. What did this kid in white say? Did he say that the hunting group was actually bandits or robbers? Isn't he looking for death? Interesting. He actually dares to insult the four of us. I, Big Blade Zhu Yen, have never met such an arrogant person. Kid, I'll give you a chance. If you kneel down, I won't take your money and let you go. The leader roared. Zhu Yen? Li Zongjio shook his head. What kind of nickname was this? Could it be that people in the past were all so non-mainstream and liked to give themselves such strange nicknames? Cut the crap. Let me shoot him down. Let's see if he can still be arrogant. As he spoke, Lao Hei was ready to shoot Li Zongjio down. However, Li Zongjio flipped his hand and a ray of light flew out from his hand. Those people immediately became nervous. However, Li Zongjio's speed was too fast. Zhu Yen only had enough time to use the long saber to block in front of him. It was unknown whether it was luck or intentional, but the arrow directly hit the big saber and was immediately split in half. It's actually my arrow. Blackie was also shocked to see this. However, the arrow that was split in half didn't stop. It split into two and flew toward Old Hay and the other person. Bush, clang. The middle-aged man suddenly shook the spear in his hand and immediately shook the arrow away. He had already lost a lot of strength, so it wasn't difficult for him to shake the arrow away. However, Lao Hei couldn't do it. When he retreated, he fell to the ground on his butt. The arrow directly pierced between his legs. Fortunately, it missed by a little. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't be able to be a man for the rest of his life. Fuck, so ruthless. Shall I go? Zhu Yen didn't hold back. At the order, the long spear man immediately threw the long spear in his hand. It came with a terrifying force and the sound of breaking air. However, the distance wasn't enough. After the white crane took Li Zongjio back dozens of meters, the long spear lost its power and was then taken back by someone. It turned out that the long spear was tied with a thin wire. No matter how far it flew, it could be taken back. However, this was only the beginning. In the next moment, the Fire Cloud Hawk took the white-clothed girl and rushed toward Li Zongjio. At the same time, it spat out a ball of flame from its mouth. This was the Yuan energy attack of a Yuan beast. The Fire Cloud Hawk had already reached the 3rd grade of the Yuan Master Realm. This flame was only the most basic attack for it. If the white crane had faced the Fire Cloud Hawk alone, it would have been defeated in an instant. However, under Li Zongjio's control, the white crane displayed its extraordinary charisma and easily dodged the Fire Cloud Hawk's attack. Whoosh! Li Zongjio jumped off the white crane and jumped toward the Fire Cloud Hawk. Li Zongjio's current Yuan energy cultivation was only at the 1st grade of the Yuan Master Realm. If he fell from such a height, only death would await him. Therefore, Li Zongjio's action was inconceivable to the black-haired girl. But seeing Li Zongjio's intention, of course, she couldn't let Li Zongjio succeed. Immediately, the fire cloud hawk turned and tried to dodge Li Zongjio's landing. However, in the next moment, Li Zongjio's figure flashed and landed on the fire cloud hawk's back. What? Seeing Li Zongjio so close, the black-haired girl pushed with both hands. The scepter in her hands seemed to be releasing energy. Mental attack. Seeing this, Li Zongjio slapped out with his palm and pressed down on the girl's hands. Buzz. An invisible impact formed in the sky behind Li Zongjio, as if it was about to burst out. Seeing this scene, even Li Zongjio's heart was filled with shock. This wave of energy far surpassed Shang Quan's. Clearly, this girl's mental energy was above Shang Quan's. Moreover, her use of mental energy was better than Shang Quan's. Indeed, it was surprising. Is your mental energy innate? Li Zongjio looked at the girl in front of him in surprise. The black-haired girl didn't expect him to have the mood to chat and flirt before the battle. However, when she looked at Li Zongjio up close, she realized that there was a rare depth in Li Zongjio's eyes, just like the vast starry sky. It was all-encompassing and at the same time, it hid its brilliance. When such a gaze appeared, the black-haired girl couldn't help but feel nervous. The black-haired girl didn't answer Li Zongjio. Her hands were pressed in front of her chest by Li Zongjio and she couldn't use her mental attack. When she reacted and wanted to continue using her mental attack, she realized that she couldn't concentrate. Swoosh! Li Zongjio tilted his head to the side, and an arrow flew past his ear. The sharp aura almost broke Li Zongjio's ear. You're courting death. Li Zongjio grabbed the black-haired girl and threw her towards the people below. Seeing the black-haired girl being thrown, the people on the ground were shocked. The flaming cloud hawk wanted to help, but Li Zongjio grabbed it by its feathers and dragged it down to the ground. Xiao Ya! Go and catch her! Zhu Yan roared. The spear-wielding man, Sha Shou, also jumped and pounced on the falling Xiao Ya. Sha Shou flew out and hugged Xiao Ya. Just as they were about to fall off the cliff, Jian also jumped up and grabbed Sha Shou. Go up! Sha Lao violently flung Xiao Ya away and she landed on the ground. In the next moment, she climbed up Zhu Yan's arm and landed on the ground. Phew! It was a close call, but Li Zongjio's attack was so vicious that it wouldn't be easy. Li Zongjio fell from the sky. Originally, Old He wanted to shoot an arrow, but he saw Li Zongjio land in front of him and even the longbow in his hand was taken away. What? Old He had been practicing archery for dozens of years, but he didn't expect that Li Zongjio would take away his longbow. He couldn't believe it. My bow. Lie down. Li Zongjio stabbed the longbow in his hand at Old He. Old He fell to his knees with a thud, clutching his stomach. The violent impact was too much for Old He to bear. It was too scary, and Old He almost couldn't breathe. Swoosh! Li Zongjio pulled out 3 arrows from Old He's back. After Old He fell to the ground, Li Zongjio also drew his bow and aimed 3 sharp arrows at the 3 people who just climbed up. Chapter 69. Without a doubt, if Li Zongjio loosened his grip, the 3 arrows would turn into deadly weapons and fly towards them. Zhu Yan saw Li Zongjio's expression and knew that something was wrong. Xiao Ya, who was beside him, swayed and her eyes seemed to be focused. Li Zongjio's expression suddenly changed. Just as he was about to take action, Zhu Yan immediately shouted. Xiao Ya, don't! Zhu Yan roared. At this moment, if Xiao Ya took action, then at least 2 of them would die on the spot. Such a loss was too great. He could die, but he didn't want his brothers to be injured, especially Xiao Ya. Since she was entrusted to him by his old comrade, of course he had to protect her. Otherwise, he would be letting his old comrade down. We surrender, we surrender. From Zhu Yan's experience, Li Zongjio was not a soft-hearted person. Moreover, from his performance just now, Li Zongjio was clearly a veteran who had experienced hundreds of battles. Some of the Real killers on the battlefield did not rely on the strength of their Yuan Li to suppress their opponents. Of course, having a strong Yuan Li was also an advantage. It was also the most basic condition for fighting. However, for someone like Li Zongjio, who did not release any Yuan Li fluctuations when he attacked, it was completely caused by his own body. This showed that Li Zongjio had already mastered the use of his Yuan Li to the point of perfection. He could use it freely. Therefore, when he attacked, his Yuan Li was already well integrated and did not deliberately release his Yuan Li aura. It was as if he was telling the enemy that he was ready to attack and that they should quickly prepare to receive the attack. Therefore, although Li Zongjio was alone, he did not even have a weapon. However, Zhu Yan already knew that they had lost. If Li Zongjio wanted to kill them, they would have died long ago. I did not expect that there would be such an expert in such a remote place. We admit defeat. Kill us or torture us as you wish. However, my little niece is innocent. Sir, please let her go, Zhu Yan said in a deep voice. At the same time, he stared at Li Zongjio. If Li Zongjio's eyes were filled with killing intent, he would have to take the risk to protect Xiaoya. Old He, who was kneeling on the ground, wanted to get up but found that he couldn't. He could only kneel on the ground. The pain seemed to stick to his body. This was the first time he had experienced such a strange phenomenon. Li Zongjio put down the bow in his hand. You can't speak? Li Zongjio looked at Xiaoya and frowned. Xiaoya's body trembled when she heard this. Zhu Yan was even more surprised. How did Li Zongjio know about this? Moreover, looking at Li Zongjio's interest in Xiaoya, Zhu Yan's heart suddenly panicked. Is this brat going to mess around? If that's the case, then even if it means perishing together with Zhu Yan would not hesitate. However, Zhu Yan could also see that Li Zongjio's eyes did not have that lecherous look. The white crane floated to the ground and gently combed its feathers at the side. As a spiritual creature, although its combat strength was not strong, its observation and insight were definitely extraordinary. Therefore, it knew that it was a safe environment below. Moreover, it could only be safe by Li Zongjio's side. This young man is strong and has a white crane as a mount. He must be a senior disciple of some sect. He shouldn't do such a despicable thing. Although Li Zongjio looked like a gentleman, if he really wanted to do something, he could only fight with his life on the line. Xiaoya was stunned for a long time before she nodded her head. There was a trace of longing and bitterness in her eyes. Mr. Our Xiaoya used to be able to speak. However, because of an accident, she suddenly became unable to speak. She has seen countless famous doctors, but I heard that only the Millennium Yellow Lotus root can cure her. Zhu Yan said tentatively. Looking at Li Zongjio's expression, he seemed to be interested in Xiaoya's situation. Moreover, Li Zongjio was able to see through Xiaoya's situation at a glance. This showed that he had some skills. Perhaps, Li Zongjio could cure Xiaoya's strange illness. Although Zhu Yan knew that the chances were slim, as long as he saw a glimmer of hope, he would not let it go. Not to mention the Millennium Yellow Lotus root, even the Millennium Yellow Lotus root can't cure her. Li Zongjio said lightly. At this moment, Lao He, who was struggling on the ground, had finally endured the pain. After feeling a little better, he was ready to get up and suppress Li Zongjio. However, he did not expect Li Zongjio to strike him with his longbow again. His back was severely injured again. Damn it! Lao He directly lay on the ground. Although he did not faint, he could not get up. He felt that his upper and lower body had been completely separated. You wait for me. I will definitely destroy you. Lao He continued to struggle. However, he had already put Li Zongjio on the list of death sentences. No matter what, he had to cripple Li Zongjio. Do not let me find the opportunity to do so. Innate mental strength. If you want to recover and master your own strength, then come to the Luoxia city's Li family and wait for me. Li Zongjio looked at Xiaoya and said, My name is Li Zongjio. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, he turned around and stepped on the white crane. Then his figure rushed up. Only after Li Zongjio left did these people regain their senses. The fire cloud hawk, who had been playing dead for a long time, finally broke free from its shackles. It stood up again and shook its feathers. Previously, it did not know what Li Zongjio had done to it. Unexpectedly, the fire cloud hawk had been lying on the ground for a long time without getting up. Now it had finally recovered. Lao He, are you all right? Sha Lao hurriedly helped old He up, but it seemed that old Hei's entire waist was about to break. This injury wasn't very optimistic. "Xiaoya, are you alright?" Zhu Yan asked Xiaoya, who was beside him. He was worried that Xiaoya had suffered too much shock. However, it seemed that she was fine. She gently shook her head. "It's good that you are fine." With the help of Xia Shou, Lao Hei gradually recovered. "Fuck, don't let me meet that brat. Otherwise, I will definitely cripple him." Lao Hei roared. Li Zongjio had attacked him twice, which made Xia Shou feel the most intense pain in the world. It was too terrifying. When he caught Li Zongjio, he would let Li Zongjio enjoy his fist. He is lucky to be able to survive this time. This person is not someone we can provoke. Zhu Yan said in a deep voice. They were not good people. They were just a group of adventurers. Just now, they were ready to beat down Li Zongjio and ask about the surrounding situation. After all, they had been in this mountain range for almost 3 days and did not see anyone. It was too desolate. It was not easy to catch someone. However, they did not expect that the opponent's strength was above them. Sure enough, people who came out from the deep mountains were not to be trifled with. "Boss, that brat said that he can cure Xiaoya?" Xia Shou could not help but ask. Xiaoya also looked at Zhu Yan. It was impossible to say that they did not hear it. That person said it so loudly and clearly. How could they not hear it? In fact, Zhu Yan was also thinking about what Li Zongjio wanted to do. Also, could he really cure Xiaoya? If he wanted to kill us, he could have done it just now. Zhu Yan said in a deep voice. Xiaoya's condition is getting worse day by day. That old faker said that if we don't solve it soon, not only will she not be able to speak, but it will also get worse. Since there is an opportunity now, we should give it a try. Zhu Yan looked at Xiaoya. This person who was shot down in such an unexpected situation had actually become their savior. Such a bizarre encounter was a little too unbelievable. Even if they told others about it, no one would believe it. But it did happen. What did he say just now? Luoxia City? Family? Li Zongjio? Chapter 70. It didn't matter what these people's motives were. What was important was whether they could be used by Li Zongjio. It didn't matter to the others, but this person called Xiaoya was a natural spiritual master. Moreover, her current spiritual power was still constantly increasing. No one could say for sure how much it would grow in the future. If Xiaoya's spiritual power erupted and she could control it, she would definitely become a very terrifying person. Just this terrifying spiritual power alone wasn't something that anyone could withstand. However, this powerful innate spiritual power was also a double-edged sword. If she couldn't control it well, it could engulf her at any time. However, there was no hurry now. At Li Zongjio's current level, what kind of people hadn't he seen before? Regarding this, even if these people had ulterior motives, Li Zongjio didn't care at all. As long as the value on them could be obtained by him, if they wanted to harm the Li family, he would directly eliminate them. After being delayed by these people, Li Zongjio only arrived in front of the Shuiyao spiritual city in the early morning of the second day. The huge Shuiyao spiritual city was more like a barrier. It was a very thick wall that blocked this place in order to block the terrifying 10,000 blood forest outside. On the walls of the Water Jade Spirit City, one could also see some shocking traces. The stories shown on these traces were created with the blood of millions of people. Countless fresh lives fell on the Shuiyao spiritual city. During the time when the Xingyan dynasty was established, the Shuiyao spiritual city had already been attacked 3 times by Yuan beasts. Therefore, the Shuiyao spiritual city could be considered a famous historical city. The fact that it could survive in such an environment already proved that the Shuiyao spiritual city wasn't simple. However, the surviving Shuiyao spiritual city had become even more terrifying and famous. Countless gold seekers and adventurers would come here. They would head to the 10,000 blood forest to look for opportunities. They would look for hope. In the world of Yuan practitioners, if they wanted to break away from mediocrity and stand out from the crowd, they had to know that what they had to experience was definitely something that ordinary people couldn't experience. Shuiyao spiritual city, I'm here. Li Zongjio looked at the city. After escaping from the clutches of Li Sheng and coming out of the forest, The first place he came to was the Water Jade Spirit City. If Li Zongjiu's experience here was also written, it would be a very fascinating book. Just like in his previous life, he had to pay taxes when he entered the city. As for the White Crane, Li Zongjiu stayed by his side at all times. After all, this was an extremely dangerous place. If the White Crane was not guarded properly and was eaten by someone, then Li Zongjiu would not be able to do anything. Even if he killed the person, he would not be able to get the White Crane out. It wasn't strange to be walking with a White Crane on the road. After all, the people here often saw some meta beasts as mounts. Most of the people in the city reeked of blood, but it depended on how thick it was. Some people had heavy killing intent, and one could sense a terrifying aura from hundreds of meters away. Blood-gazing tower. Li Zongjiu brought the White Crane to the front of the blood-gazing tower. In other cities and other places, the name of the restaurant had to be elegant and grand. Only then would people come here. Otherwise, how could people enjoy a meal that was supposed to be elegant if the name of the restaurant was filled with the smell of blood? However, in the Water Jade Spirit City, there were many similar restaurants that were filled with killing intent. The people who came here were not kind people. How could they not eat because of the name of the restaurant? Of course, the blood-gazing tower also had an unusual background. There were 3 major organizations in the underground forces of the Water Jade Spirit City. Savage Blood Gang. In the Water Jade Spirit City, there was almost no one who didn't know of them. They controlled dozens of businesses. In the past, they collected protection fees and black taxes. Later on, they did some legitimate businesses, such as opening some legitimate black shops. It was only natural that the laws of the Land of Chaos would change accordingly. "Oh, guest, please come in. Do you want a meal or a place to stay?" Seeing this clean young man with a White Crane walk in, the waiter immediately went up to greet him with a smile. Looking at Li Zongjiu's attire, he knew that he couldn't stay in his sect and came out to experience life. Most of the men who practiced martial arts yearned for the lifestyle of licking blood on the blade. They would feel that it was very cool, but when they saw blood splashed on their body, they would often lose control of their bowels. Places like the blood-gazing tower would often act as pioneers and give you a lesson first. In this way, you would know that it was not so easy to make a living in Jianghu. Basically, Li Zongjiu's attire meant that he was a fool. Just wait for him to be ruthlessly slaughtered. "Take care of my crane." Li Zongjiu directly threw out a gold coin. He threw out a gold coin right away. He was indeed a disciple of a large sect. "Okay." The waiter very skillfully caught the gold coin and stuffed it into his arms. Then he led Li Zongjiu's White Crane to the backyard. Usually, it wasn't a problem to deposit amount. Li Zongjiu found a more remote corner and sat down. It just so happened that he could see the situation outside through the window. Everyone in the restaurant looked at Li Zongjiu with a strange gaze. Some people also looked at Li Zongjiu with bad intentions, wanting to see something from Li Zongjiu. However, Li Zongjiu swept past all these gazes. At this time, the sky was slightly bright. Some people had left the city, while others had just returned. There was no distinction between day and night here. In the inn, breakfast, lunch, and dinner were provided at any time. As long as you wanted to eat, as long as you could afford it. On this point, he was still very principled. He let you comfortably pay the money. "I want a plate of boiled prawns," Li Zongjiu said. On the menu, the price of the boiled prawns was 20 silver coins. As a freshwater dish, the price was on the high side. However, with the service and treatment, plus the environment, it was worth the money. However, Li Zongjiu's experience in his previous life was clear. This plate of boiled prawns cost 20 silver coins. It referred to a single prawn, not a plate. This kind of menu was generally used to cheat fools. In his previous life, Li Zongjiu also fell for this trick once. He didn't expect that they would use the same trick this time. Soon, a plate of fragrant boiled prawns was served. The rich aroma was indeed very strong. However, there were at least 20 to 30 prawns on the plate. In total, this plate alone cost about 600 silver coins. That was a total of 6 gold coins. The shopkeeper in the distance was also very enthusiastic. Looking at Li Zhongjio's appearance, even if he was cheated, he wouldn't dare to make a sound. At first glance, one could tell that he was a young chicken. Hurry up, slow down. Unload this cart of firewood into the kitchen. Otherwise, there will be no food for you today. Li Zhongjio ate a prawn. Then he seemed to hear a sound coming from outside. Then he saw a sleepy-eyed fat man carrying a bundle of firewood into the kitchen with difficulty. Sure enough, this guy really knows how to laze around. Li Zhongjio looked at the fat man. On the surface, he seemed to be submissive and as timid as a mouse. However, in fact, he had a lot of wicked ideas in his stomach to be able to do this. However, he was indeed under the control of the people here. He couldn't escape. If he tried to escape, he would be beaten to death. However, when he worked every day, he looked like he was working very hard. In fact, he didn't put much effort into it. Boss, the bill. Li Zhongjio wiped his mouth and said, "All right, the boiled prawns you ordered is 720 silver coins in total. I'll round off the change and charge you 700 silver coins." The shopkeeper came in front of Li Zhongjio. He was calculating with an abacus in his hand. Then he said in a very amiable manner, "Boss, did you calculate wrongly?" Chapter 71. Hearing Li Zhongjio's words, the owner of the blood-gazing tower narrowed his eyes. A few waiters not far away also quietly came over. Interesting. I didn't expect this kid to be so courageous. He even dared to speak. That's right. Look carefully. It's written clearly on the menu. Our shop is a century-old shop. You're still young. Don't ruin our shop's reputation. The owner said fearlessly. If Li Zhongjio wanted to go back on his words, he had 100 ways to make Li Zhongjio pay up. Otherwise, Li Zhongjio wouldn't be able to walk out of the door of the blood-gazing tower. Oh, I see. Li Zhongjio glanced at the other party's lineup. The fatty outside was also carrying the firewood. When he heard the commotion inside, he couldn't help but stand on tiptoe. All right, 600 it is. Li Zhongjio said. He seemed to admit defeat. Then he took out a money bag from his chest and threw it to the other party. The owner took the money bag. He didn't even need to open it. He only needed to weigh it a little to know if there was a mistake. Over the years, the money that passed through his hands was more than the money that you've seen before. Hee, that's right. Our shop is open for business. You see, it's on such a large scale. Of course, we're honest. How can we cheat people? Our prawns are fed with the heavenly jade spring. They're different. Take your time. I'll get a room for you. The shopkeeper said with a smile. The waiters who had gathered behind him also dispersed. Okay, Li Zhongjio returned to his room. He cultivated until night fell. When night fell, in the woodshed in the backyard, the fatty was chopping firewood with all his might. His fat face was red and sweat flowed down his forehead. Right at that moment, the owner of the inn walked in quietly. "Owner, why are you here?" The fatty hurriedly stood up and said. He was still carrying the axe in his hand and forgot to put it down. You put down your axe before you speak," the shopkeeper said. The fatty also put down the axe, wiped the sweat off his hands, and then wiped the stool beside him. "Please take a seat, shopkeeper." "Xiao Wang, how long have you been here?" the shopkeeper said with a kind and amiable face. No one could tell what the shopkeeper was thinking. 2 months. It's been 2 months. When will you be able to pay back the 50 gold coins you owe me? Shopkeeper, didn't we agree that we would call it even if I worked for 3 months? We even signed a contract back then. Wang Jing suddenly became anxious. It wasn't easy to get out of the countryside, but he was cheated the moment he came out. Later, he couldn't help but eat a free meal here. Fortunately, everyone negotiated very well and let Wang Jing work here for 3 months to pay off the debt. Fortunately, Wang Jing had been doing farm work since he was young, so he didn't mind suffering a bit. Your 3 months of work is indeed enough to pay off the money for that meal, but who will pay for the food you ate in these 2 months? I didn't say that I would provide food and accommodation for you. As for accommodation, I'll be generous and not count it as your payment. But the way you eat, it's enough to feed 10 of my workers. Don't you think so? The shopkeeper couldn't help but say. Hearing the shopkeeper's words, Wang Jing's face suddenly became uglier than if he had eaten something. His whole face sank. He never thought that the shopkeeper would arrange such a trick to wait for him. Then this. In that case, wouldn't Wang Jing have to work here for the rest of his life? Moreover, he wouldn't be paid. I've already told Grandpa that I'm going out to make a living. Once I earn enough money, I'll go back and marry Xiao Fang. What should I do now? Xiao Wang, you've been with me for more than 2 months. I've also treated you as one of my own people. So, I'll show you the way. Let's see if you dare to do it. If you succeed, not only will you pay off your debt here, but you'll also get a lot of income. Moreover, your safety will be guaranteed. How about it? The shopkeeper said as he approached. When Wang Jing heard this, he suddenly realized something. He quickly covered his chest and shook his head. No, shopkeeper. If you want me to do that kind of thing, how can I go back to the village in the future? How can I face people in the future? Absolutely not. Seeing the more than 200 pounds of fat on Wang Jing's body shaking, this fat guy really thought that he was very popular. How could there be such a confident person? Who on earth gave you the courage to say such words? The shopkeeper suddenly slapped Wang Jing's head. What nonsense are you thinking about? Let me tell you, there's a rich guy in the 5th room. This is a sleeping gas. It won't kill him. You just need to spray it into the window. I only want half of the money, and the other half is yours. Do you want to do it or not? The shopkeeper instigated. When Wang Jing heard that he was going to steal someone's money, he breathed a sigh of relief. However, he immediately became nervous again. No, how could he kill for money? This was wrong. This was the idea that his grandfather had instilled in him since he was young. Of course, he couldn't destroy it. Wang Jing was determined not to do such a thing. Listen to me first. This guy's origin is not simple. As far as I know, he seems to have come from the northern mountain to sell his stolen goods. He's a gang of bandits. However, their gang is too powerful. We can't report it to the authorities. So, we can only ask you to do it and then leave here. This will help you and punish the gang. You're doing the people a favor. Your grandfather will be proud of you. The shopkeeper said. Hearing this, Wang Jing's eyes suddenly lit up. If that's the case, then maybe I'm a little hero too. Really? The fat guy looked very kind and innocent. The shopkeeper also nodded fiercely. If I lie to you, my inn will be on fire tonight. And it will be the kind that can't be extinguished. Seeing that the shopkeeper had made such a vow, Wang Jing felt a lot more relieved. Okay, since this guy is a bad guy, can I punch him a few times later? The fat guy showed that he hated these people from the dark forces very much. Of course you can, but don't use too much strength. Otherwise, he will wake up in a while. Now is the time. Most of the guests are asleep. You go quickly. There are no guests on that floor. I have already arranged it. The shopkeeper said. For tonight's action, the shopkeeper directly arranged Li Zongjio to stay in the guest room on the highest floor. The entire floor was empty. But Wang Jing took the ecstasy smoke from the shopkeeper. He didn't even bother to change his clothes. Instead, he casually placed the axe on his waist. Then, he quietly crept forward. The pitch-black corridor made Wang Jing feel a little nervous. He turned around and saw 2 waiters behind him, who had come to his aid. These 2 waiters were responsible for providing support and also to prevent Wang Jing from escaping. If he ran away, their efforts would be in vain. This Li Zongjio was definitely a disciple of a large sect who had come out to gain experience. He might have some good treasures on him. Money didn't matter. It was secondary. If he had some special things, some special treasures, he could make a lot of money. This was what the shopkeeper cared about. Boss, are we really going to let this fat guy go? The shopkeeper and several waiters hid in the woodshed and looked at the situation in the opposite room. Humph, not only will I let him go, but I will also send him off. These waiters also heard the coldness in the shopkeeper's voice. They were afraid that this little fat guy wouldn't survive. After all, only if this little fat guy died on the way to escape, this matter would be completely hidden. No one would know that he was the culprit. If something happened, there was still the gang behind him. Wang Jing came to the door of Li Zongjio's room and quietly poked a hole in the window. He saw the situation inside and found that Li Zongjio was sitting on the bed with his eyes closed. However, Wang Jing didn't directly blow the sleeping gas in. Instead, he turned around. He made a gesture to the two waiters behind him. This gesture meant that Li Zongjio had run away. Chapter 72. Ran away. Seeing Wang Jing's gesture, the two waiters' eyes widened and they looked at each other. Then, they pointed to the room next door, indicating that they should go to the room next door to talk. If a guest came out and saw them sneaking around, it would definitely cause trouble. Wang Jing nodded and opened the door of the room opposite Li Zongjio's room. Just as the two waiters were about to enter the restaurant, Wang Jing actually walked forward with his fat body. Bang! His big belly directly knocked the two waiters out, and his fists also fell on their bodies. Bang bang! The two fists fell, just like the scene of fighting wild boars in the village. It was almost one punch each. The two waiters had almost no strength to fight back and were directly knocked out by Wang Jing. When they fell to the ground, they could not help but make some noise. The shopkeeper, who was observing from the woodshed downstairs, also frowned. How could there be such a big commotion? It's not the first time that Lil Bin and Lil Wu have done it. How could there be such a big commotion? However, after listening carefully for a while, there were no other sounds, so he gradually relaxed. It should be going smoothly, and accidents were inevitable. You want to stare at Master Jing? You're too inexperienced. Wang Jing could not help but clap his hands. Only when there was no one around would Wang Jing reveal his true colors. To be able to catch the attention of the shopkeeper, that kid must have a lot of treasures on him. Thinking of this, Wang Jing could not help but rub his hands. Holding the ecstasy smoke in his hand, he was about to walk out. Twigs. Huh? Before Wang Jing walked out, he saw Li Zongjio walk in from the door, carrying a bag on his body. Not good. Wang Jing's mind was suddenly thinking about how to deceive Li Zongjio. Don't think about it. You can't beat me. I know your direct subordinate, Fatty Wang. Li Zongjio said with a smile. Wang Jing was a good friend of his in his previous life. He was about the same age as Li Zongjio, but in fact, he had been in Jianghu for a long time. He was a real old fox. Wang Jing did come from that village. That's right. But in fact, when Wang Jing was 5 years old, he was already in the underworld. When he was 5 years old, Wang Jing's grandfather passed away, so Wang Jing came out alone. Along the way, he swindled others. This guy was best at pretending to be a fool, going to a place and eating without paying. Then they settled down in this inn. Basically, they would target these greedy inns with some background. Then, every day, they would use some unknown method to steal some money from these inns. Of course, the money they stole was from the shopkeepers or some bullies. Every time he took a small amount, he would not be discovered at all. In addition, this guy was the kind of person who did things very carefully. Then he would switch to another city. Then he would continue to do this. If Li Zongjio did not hang out with this fatty in his previous life, he would not have known that this little fatty looked so honest on the outside, but in his heart he was actually full of evil tricks. Who are you? Wang Jing had already made up a story about him being kidnapped, but when he heard Li Zongjio's words, he was stunned. How did this guy know my name? My old enemy came to find me? That was impossible. Wang Jing, Wang Jing, Wang Jin, Wang Jin. He had used at least a dozen fake names. How could he be found? And every time he did it cleanly. There was absolutely no one who knew. Someone could follow him. Don't pretend in front of me. I'm here to take you flying. Li Zongjio said with a smile. Now you have two choices. 1, I take your money and leave. 2, you take the money and leave with me. Li Zongjio said. My money? Fuck, that's the money I hid. How did you find it? When Wang Jing saw the bag in Li Zongjio's hand, he was so excited that he almost jumped up. This bag was the money he had painstakingly saved for the past 2 months. He hid it in a pit 5 meters away from the latrine. How could anyone find such a secluded place? And every day, when Wang Jing left, he would leave a mark at that place. He would check it every day. How did this guy find it? You'd better put down my money. Otherwise, the axe in my hand is not to be trifled with. Wang Jing's face darkened as he pulled out the axe from his waist. It seemed that he had met an opponent. This Li Zongjio should have been following him for a long time. He was really scary. It seemed that there would be a tough battle today. How long has it been since you used your alchemy skills? How long are you going to swindle money before you can buy a house in Sacred Yen City? Li Zongjio said. Wang Jing's heart was not bad. Even his wish was very simple. He just wanted to buy a house in the capital of the Xingyan dynasty and then equip it with a carriage. That would be enough. But with Wang Jing's speed of making money, who knew how long it would take for him to succeed? How did you know? This time, Wang Jing was completely shocked by Li Zongjio. This was no longer as simple as an investigation. You're not a roundworm in my stomach, are you? You roundworm. Wang Jing could not help but think of the roundworm that came out of his stomach when he had a stomachache a few days ago. It must have turned into Li Zongjio. It was really scary. He even knew his dream. This was simply too scary. Wang Jing had never mentioned this idea to anyone. Moreover, how did this guy know about the alchemy fire? In fact, Wang Jing was an alchemist. Moreover, he was a very powerful alchemist. But Wang Jing did not dare to use his alchemy skills. Wang Jing, who had been in Jianghu for many years, knew that if he used his alchemy skills, he would definitely be killed. It was enough to use it at a critical moment. If he exposed his talent too early, it would only bring danger to himself. Roundworm your sister. If you delay any longer, you won't be able to leave in a while. Li Zongjio said. At this time, Wang Jing was also hesitating. He did not know where Li Zongjio came from, but he knew everything about him. This made Wang Jing extremely worried. But now, his money was in Li Zongjio's hands. If he did not agree to Li Zongjio's request, then all his efforts over the years would be in vain. Thinking of this, Wang Jing simply gritted his teeth. You win, but you have to tell me your name first. Wang Jing said. Years of experience told Wang Jing that although Li Zongjio was not a good person, he was definitely here for him. It was not a good or bad thing, but the motive. I am Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio said. After 3,000 years, when Li Zongjio came here in his previous life, he was extremely down and out. He met Li Zongjio, who was also down and out. Wang Jing saw that Li Zongjio was still young at that time, and that he had encountered such a tragedy, so he took great care of Li Zongjio. After all, for a poor person like Li Zongjio, it was very rare to see him. Even later, when he killed Li Changjiang and his gang, Wang Jing also rushed to the forefront. Later, Li Zongjio's strength became stronger, and Wang Jing also looked for his own path until many years later. Both of them became famous. However, these things were very far in the future. Li Zongjio, when Wang Jing heard this name, his ears could not help but twitch. He always felt that he had heard this name before. There was an inexplicable sense of familiarity, which made Wang Jing very surprised. How could this be? Of course, Wang Jing did not say this strange feeling out loud. Otherwise, Li Zongjio would misunderstand that he had some weird fetish. I remember. What should we do now? Wang Jing asked. What else can we do? Burn it. Li Zongjio said. Chapter 73. At the door of the woodshed. The innkeeper had been watching for a while. But until now, there had been no movement at all. It had been a long time, but he still hadn't succeeded. Could it be that something had happened? The innkeeper couldn't help but feel puzzled. You too, follow me upstairs to have a look. The uneasiness in his heart grew stronger, so he decided to go upstairs with his men to see what was going on. However, before the innkeeper went upstairs, he saw some black smoke burning on the roof. At the same time, the pungent smell of smoke shocked everyone. Damn, what's going on? Innkeeper, it seems like there's a fire. Fire? The innkeeper looked over and saw the fire in front of him. At the same time, there was a commotion in the guest room. Quick, bring people to put out the fire, quick, quick. The shopkeeper wasn't clear about the current situation. However, if his inn caught fire and suffered heavy losses, how was he going to explain it to his superiors? This inn was only managed by the shopkeeper on behalf of his superiors. The fire instantly burned. Many people rushed out of the building, crying and screaming. The scene was chaotic. In the midst of the chaos, a fat figure directly rushed to the front of the counter. With 2 bangs, he directly pried open the secret compartment of the counter and grabbed a large amount of banknotes and some rare gems from the secret compartment. They were all stuffed into Wang Jing's arms. "You're really not polite." Li Zongjio was surprised when he saw Wang Jing's actions. In his previous life, he didn't expect Wang Jing to have such means. He even knew the secrets of others so clearly. These are the innkeeper's private savings. Since he won't be coming back in the future, of course, I'll take them with me," Wang Jing said. Li Zongjio didn't say anything. He called Wang Jing and immediately rushed in the direction of the White Crane. When he passed by the woodshed, he saw the innkeeper and his men coming to put out the fire. Wait, why do the 2 people who ran by look so familiar? The innkeeper only glanced at them for a moment, so he didn't see them clearly. "Innkeeper, a tenant ran away without paying." "What? Capture them all." The scene was extremely chaotic. Some people put on their clothes and ran out directly because some people had stayed here for a few days and hadn't paid their room fees yet. Now, they wanted to take advantage of the chaos to escape. How could he tolerate this? When the shopkeeper rushed into his counter, the shopkeeper's expression changed. He immediately realized that the secret compartment where he kept his money had been brazenly pried open. The shopkeeper was so angry that he almost had a heart attack. He clutched his chest, extremely shocked and in extreme pain. "Oh my God!" The shopkeeper's head was filled with blood. Blood rushed to his head, causing the shopkeeper's vision to darken. He fainted and fell to the ground with a creak. This was a premeditated arson. Shopkeeper, wake up." A waiter kept shaking the shopkeeper until he finally woke up. It was not easy for the shopkeeper to wake up. When the waiter saw that the shopkeeper had woken up, he immediately became excited. "Shopkeeper, you're awake. That little fatty ran away." It was another piece of bad news for the shopkeeper. How could an old man like him withstand such torment? With a creak, he fainted again. Couldn't this bad news stop for a while and then talk about it later? How many people could bear it when you're like this? Li Zongjio and Wang Jing rode the White Crane and soared into the sky. Their figures disappeared into the night sky. The 2 of them directly left the Shui Yao spiritual city. If they continued to delay, the people from the Savage Blood Gang would arrive. At that time, even Li Zongjio wouldn't be able to escape. "Oh, it seems that there are people following us." In the dark night, several black eagles took advantage of the darkness to chase after Li Zongjio and Wang Jing. "So it's them. I've seen them before. They're from the Black Hawk Gang," Wang Jing said. The Black Hawk Gang was indeed arrogant. They even dared to set their sights on the blood-gazing tower. On the surface, the blood-gazing tower was a restaurant, but in fact, it was a stronghold for selling stolen goods. In this stronghold alone, there were already millions of gold coins in circulation. What Wang Jing had taken away just now was only a part of it. There were more that he hadn't taken away. It was estimated that he had already handed it over. The Black Hawk Gang. Li Zongjio couldn't remember. After more than 3,000 years, he couldn't remember everything. However, looking at Wang Jing's calm appearance, he should have a plan. "You fly over there. The Black Hawk Gang's natural enemy is over there. They don't dare to go there." Li Zongjio also listened to Wang Jing's words and let the White Crane fly in the direction Wang Jing pointed. The figure of the White Crane drew an arc in the sky, and when one looked at the direction it was flying in, one could see the direction it was flying in. The black eagles chasing behind seemed to be anxious. Each of them bravely chased after it, their wings constantly flapping. "Crush, I'll let you chase me. Today, I'll let you have a taste of my power. You've always bullied me." Wang Jing took out a slingshot from his backpack and grabbed a few iron balls in his hand. Crack. The slingshot in his hand was pulled taut, as if it would break at any time. Wang Jing closed one eye and aimed at the figure behind him. "Lock on." Swoosh. The metal bead in his hand whistled as it broke free from its reins. In the process of flying, the beads suddenly burst into flames with a boom. This was Fatty Wang's natal extinction. Alchemy fire. In other words, this was Fatty Wang's natural original spirit. Those who could awaken their original spirit before reaching the origin ancestor realm were considered natural original spirits. The earlier they awakened, the more powerful they were. Fatty Wong had such a unique skill, but he had no choice but to hide it in the dangerous underworld. In fact, if it weren't for the dangerous underworld, the number of geniuses would definitely increase. Most of the geniuses died because they exposed their talent but didn't have a good backing. Therefore, they died directly. There were very few geniuses like Fatty Wong who had a sense of self-protection. Most of them liked to show off their abilities and were then caught by people with ulterior motives. Such situations could be said to be countless. Chapter 74. This metal bead with flames directly hit the face of Black Eagle, who was charging at the front. Immediately, sparks flew in all directions. It was aimed at the Black Eagle's eyes, but it hit the eagle's face instead. Hence, its accuracy was not as good as before. However, it managed to slow down the Black Eagles. The white crane brought the two of them and immediately plunged into the air above the forest that was filled with a dangerous aura. The forest gave off a strange vibe. There seemed to be a tall mountain in front of them. Just these ancient forests were already very high. Who would be able to survive in such a high mountain? Soon they would get the answer. Li Zongjio looked up at the sky. The Black Eagles behind him had also stopped. They seemed to have given up on chasing them. However, they quickly turned around and prepared to outflank Li Zongjio and the others. Damn it. Why is it this guy's territory? When Li Zongjio felt the aura approaching, he knew that the situation was not good. The giant bird in front of them was a level 3 meta beast. Golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. It was comparable to the general realm. Li Zongjio did not know its specific level. Wang Jing must have known about the existence of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Based on Li Zongjio's understanding of this Wang Jing, he must have deliberately lured Li Zongjio here. If Li Zongjio couldn't escape from this golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's clutches, Li Zongjio would definitely be killed. Then, it would prove that Li Zongjio was not capable of taking him away. In that case, there was no need for him to leave with Li Zongjio. Anyway, he had already escaped. He could leave at any time and start again in another place. If Li Zongjio could escape from the hands of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, it meant that Li Zongjio really had some strength. If that was the case, it shouldn't be a big problem for them to cooperate. In any case, he had a way to escape. What a huge eagle. How could it be this thing? The last time I came, I don't remember this guy being this big. What should we do now? Why don't we let this white crane take you away first? At this moment, Wang Jing came up to him and said in a hypocritical manner. His acting skills were indeed terrible. Li Zongjio didn't even bother to look at the fatty who didn't mean what he said. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was a class 3 meta beast and had a strong sense of territory. If Li Zongjio had led the white crane away obediently, the other party would have let it go. After all, the white crane was a spiritual creature with intelligence. Furthermore, it did not have any offensive capabilities, just like a small sparrow. Normally, meta beasts wouldn't attack too much. Of course, unexpected situations often happened, and no one could guarantee anything. If those level 2 Black Eagles had barged in, there would have been a bloody battle. However, if he turned back, he would encounter the Black Eagle troop. Although Li Zongjio wasn't afraid, if he turned back, wouldn't Fatty Wang look down on him? Since you said so, then let's go down. Wang Jing's expression changed, and Li Zongjio's figure rose into the air. Boom! The white crane, carrying Wang Jing, descended at a high speed. Wang Jing was so scared that he grabbed a handful of the white crane's feathers. Li Zongjio's figure was like a weak leaf, without any gravity, flying directly onto the back of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Whoosh! When Li Zongjio landed on the back, he realized that the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was really big. Standing on it, Li Zongjio felt as if he was standing on a vast open space. The noble back of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was not something a small human could step on. Immediately, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's figure soared into the sky and quickly descended. At the same time, it spun wildly, trying to throw Li Zongjio off. However, Li Zongjio held on tightly to the feathers on the back of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Although the shaking was violent, Li Zongjio didn't let go. Suddenly, Li Zongjio's hand loosened. It turned out that the feathers of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle had been directly pulled off by Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's figure was thrown out directly. He was at least 300 meters away from the ground. If he fell, he would definitely be smashed to pieces. Wang Jing, who was flying at a low altitude below, saw this scene and felt slightly nervous. Aya, this kid is really pitiful. Will he directly hit the cliff and become a pile of tomatoes? If the tomatoes were hit by such a great force on the cliff, they would become a blood-red puddle. If it were Li Zongjio, he would end up in the same situation. Li Zongjio's skill was unexpectedly good. When Li Zongjio's body turned, he directly landed on the cliff. The moment his feet touched the cliff, his body once again soared and rushed out. His figure was very fast. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle let out an angry roar. It opened its mouth and a bolt of lightning burst out from it. Boom! A ball of light appeared on its blue tail. It was said that the power of lightning of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was released from the energy accumulated on its tail. An electric arc struck towards Li Zongjio. Boom! Sizzle! The terrifying electric arc instantly fell on Li Zongjio's body. It directly sent Li Zongjio's figure flying 100 meters away. With a bang, he smashed into the cliff, creating a cave. He's still not dead? Wang Jing saw this scene and suddenly opened his mouth in surprise. Li Zongjio should have been blown to pieces by the electric arc. But now, it seemed that he was resisted because Li Zongjio's aura was still there. Beep! The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's sharp claws directly nailed into the cliff. Then, the eagle's steel-like beak directly pecked into the cliff. Bang! 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 Like a woodpecker, these stones were like paste in front of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's beak. They were directly smashed into pieces. Rumble! Li Zongjio, who was still in a state of paralysis, was directly picked up by the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Isn't this a little too cruel? Seeing this scene, even Wang Jing couldn't bear to look at it. Li Zongjio's fate was really miserable. Therefore, one should never be pretentious. If one couldn't win in a head-on fight, one should never fight. Take a look at how tragic this outcome is. I want to collect your corpse, but you must not be eaten. Wang Jing didn't expect Li Zongjio to be such a loser. He thought that he could at least hold on to his life. But since he couldn't survive, Wang Jing couldn't blame him. However, the next scene made Wang Jing's eyes widen. The originally lively golden-winged blue-tailed eagle seemed to have suffered a stroke all of a sudden. Its huge body directly fell from the sky. Boom! Chapter 75. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle descended from the sky. It smashed heavily onto the ground. However, its body was as tough as steel. All the stones it encountered along the way were crushed like tofu. Its huge body didn't have the slightest injury, but it looked dispirited and listless. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle could not open its eyes. Li Zongjio jumped down from the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's head. Just this one guy is a bit of a waste of my psychic rope. Li Zongjio clapped his hands. Spiritual rope. It was a kind of rope recorded in the heavenly void god's record. It could refine one's spiritual power into an invisible rope, and this invisible rope could easily bind a target with a weaker spiritual power. Li Zongjio's spiritual power in his previous life had condensed a total of 7 ropes. He sat on 7 spiritual beasts. It was these 7 spiritual beasts that enabled Li Zongjio to defeat the 4 Dragon Soul Supremes. This spiritual rope had just been condensed. He had tested it tonight, and the effect was indeed very good. Even this level 3 meta beast could not escape from Li Zongjio. Oh my god, how did you do it? Wang Jing's eyes widened. He was already extremely shocked when he saw Li Zongjio jump down from the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's body so easily. How did he deal with this big monster? This was simply too ferocious. Previously, he thought that Li Zongjio could not hold on any longer. Now, he did not know what method he used, but he directly took down the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. This was so shocking. This guy could actually take down such a monster. This was an expert who was comparable to a general realm expert. A mere level 3 meta beast is nothing. Li Zongjio said lightly. I have even killed a level 7 meta beast. Wang Jing looked at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's first sentence was just a pretentious act, but the second sentence was a bit too much. However, what Li Zongjio said was the truth. The 4 Dragon Soul Supremes that Li Zongjio had killed in his previous life were all peak level 7 primordial beasts. Any one of them would be at the level of dominating the continent and ruling over a dynasty. The fact that Li Zongjio was able to kill him showed just how powerful he was. Of course, Li Zongjio's fate was not easy either. Although it was said that he had been killed, in reality, he had paid a great price and had prepared for a long time. Alright. You're awesome. From today onwards, you're my boss. Since Li Zongjio was so strong, Wang Jing also knew about it. Even if he wanted to escape, he had no chance at all. How did such a powerful person end up targeting him? This made Wang Jing puzzled. However, Wang Jing also knew that he needed to calm Li Zongjio down first before anything else. Since he could not escape, it was natural for him to show his loyalty to Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio was not affected by Wang Jing's display of loyalty. After all, Li Zongjio knew very well what kind of person Wang Jing was. He was showing his loyalty now, but it was only because of Li Zongjio's strength. If he had the chance, he might even stab him in the back. Boom! The two of them were originally standing in front of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle and chatting. When they saw the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle move, Wang Jing was shocked. Fuck, this guy is about to wake up. Hurry up and kill him. Kill him. Wang Jing shouted. Then he found a stone on the ground and threw it at the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's head. Boom. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was unscathed. Wang Jing was very quick-witted as he hid behind Li Zongjio. Hurry up and strangle him. Otherwise, we will be eaten. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle stood up and shook its head. Then, it bent down and prostrated itself on the ground in front of Li Zongjio. This was a gesture of submission among the meta beasts. Seeing this scene, Wang Jing was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. It turned out that Li Zongjio had not used any method to knock out the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Instead, he had subdued the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. What did subduing mean? In order to subdue a meta beast, one had to first beat the meta beast to the ground. Then one had to drip a drop of blood on it and sign a contract. There was a process in between. However, Li Zongjio did not seem to have done anything superfluous. He just jumped off the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's back. When did he complete this process? He couldn't believe that Li Zongjio was able to settle the matter so easily. Sit on its back later. It is a little strenuous for this white crane to carry 2 people. Li Zongjio said. Wang Jing moved his fat body. Not only was Wang Jing fat, but he also carried a lot of money and treasures. Wang Jing was so tired that he looked like he was about to stop breathing after carrying 20 to 30 kilograms of wood. However, he was carrying almost 50 kilograms of items without any difficulty. He was not even out of breath. This was a little too much. Wang Jing came to the front of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle and greeted it with a smile. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle also stared at Wang Jing with its eyes wide open. Wang Jing was also thinking about the fact that he threw a stone at it. It probably didn't see it clearly, and it probably didn't understand human language. Otherwise, it would dare to ask Li Zongjio to strangle it to death. If it had heard him, Wang Jing's fate would be miserable. Hee, Boss Eagle, how are you? When I return to the city, I will treat you to meat and fish. Hee ha. Wang Jing climbed onto the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's back with a nervous heart. He did not know how well Li Zongjio had subdued it. If it was not tamed and he was thrown off halfway, he would die miserably. The white crane and the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle took off at the same time. However, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was as fast as lightning. In an instant, it soared into the sky and rushed up. The sudden acceleration made it hard for Wang Jing to breathe. The difficulty of breathing made his face turn ghastly pale. Boom. Damn it, big brother, slow down. Wang Jing grabbed a handful of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's feathers to prevent himself from being thrown off. Obviously, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was taking revenge on this little fatty. Li Zongjio did not care. As long as he did not die, it would be fine. In the blink of an eye, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle took Wang Jing to an unknown place. However, Li Zongjio sat on the back of the white crane slowly and leisurely, flying into the distance. Dark clouds were surging in front of them. Li Zongjio had consumed a lot of mental energy. Now, he closed his eyes and rested. The wind and clouds were howling. The Black Hawk gang had gathered nearly 10 Black Hawk troops. First Master? What's the target? Why is there such a big lineup? Chapter 76. We've finally made some progress with the whistles we've set up over the past few days. 2 brats have robbed the blood-gazing tower of their black money. The big boss was wearing a pitch-black mask, revealing only his eyes. He was already wearing night clothes, and now he was wearing something like that on his head. He didn't expect the Black Hawk gang to be so bold. They actually dared to target the blood-gazing tower. This was indeed a little arrogant. However, they weren't robbing the blood-gazing tower of their money. It was just a double-cross. They had their eyes on Li Zongjio and Wang Jing. They entered Fuzhou Mountain. There's only one exit. We just need to wait here. They'll come to us on their own accord. The leader of the Black Hawk gang sneered. They weren't even familiar with the surrounding terrain, yet they still dared to rob. This was really stupid. After all, they had to plan well before doing anything. Now, even if they planned to rob, they didn't have any plan to escape. They would only be making a wedding dress for others. The leader of the Black Hawk gang waved his hand, and the dozen or so Black Hawk troops all rose into the air and blended into the night. It wasn't an easy task to pass through the Fuji mountain. It would take some time. Dawn quietly arrived, and the darkness in the sky became even more intense. Seeing this scene, the members of the Black Hawk gang couldn't help but become alert. Their mounts had already keenly felt the airflow vibrations in front of them. Wake up, there's a situation. The airflow vibrations were very obvious. They must have been released by some delicate birds. A white figure slowly appeared in front of them. Suddenly, the eyes of the dozen or so Black Hawks became extremely sharp. These black eagles were not easy to deal with. They had yet to break away from their most primitive bestial nature. Therefore, they were extremely adept at devouring flesh and blood. The slightest movement would cause them to go on a killing spree. In fact, they loved to tease these weak creatures the most. Hunting them was what the Black Hawks liked to do the most. Of course, it would be great if they could kill some high-level meta-beasts. However, as the middle of the food chain, they usually had the same character, which was to bully the weak and fear the strong. It just so happened that this white crane was the softest kind of crane. On the white crane, Li Zongjio's eyes were also tightly shut. Even until now, he had not sensed the impending danger. He continued to meditate with his eyes closed, adjusting his energy to its peak state. The white crane clearly felt that there were more than 10 murderous intents waiting for it in front. However, the white crane wasn't nervous at all. As a spiritual creature, it knew where its advantage lay and also knew that its master had a trump card. At that moment, it swaggered over to Lin Fan. This level of arrogance was extremely arrogant in the eyes of anyone. This little white bird actually wanted to slip away from these black eagles. Dream on. Kill! The leader of the Black Hawk gang waved his hand, and the black eagles behind him immediately swooped down. As the white crane's body was lower, they had more advantage when they swooped down. They had explosive power and could kill Li Zongjio and the white crane in an instant. According to the intelligence, there are 2 of them. It seems that the other person has been eaten up. The leader of the Black Hawk gang snorted coldly in his heart. This was how the world worked. The strong preyed on the weak. Since that was the case, there was no need to be polite. Boom! The leader of the Black Hawk gang quickly descended. Li Zongjio sat on the white crane's back, still unmoved. Just as the Black Hawk gang was about to succeed. Suddenly, a huge shadow shrouded them. At this moment, the moon was about to set, and the light was very weak. Therefore, the shadow wasn't that obvious. However, they could clearly feel it. This huge figure descended. After all, they were less than 50 meters apart. What is that? The leader of the Black Hawk gang looked up, but the distance between them was too close. They would meet in the next second. In the next second, they met. Boom! The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle directly flew out. With a bang, its huge wings struck the dozen or so black eagles from head to tail. Bang! 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 The wings of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle were like sharp blades, killing all the people riding on the back of the black eagles. In addition, some of the black eagles were also directly sent flying. Such a tragic end was unbelievable. The boss of the Black Hawk gang, who barely managed to escape the calamity, wanted to summon his Black Shadow squad. When he turned around, he found that his squad had already suffered losses. Many heads and Black Hawks had fallen from the sky. They lost their power. They could only descend from the sky. Li Zongjio was still sitting on the back of the white crane, flying forward leisurely. However, not a single drop of blood landed on the white crane. Damn it. My Black Eagle troop was annihilated. Where did this guy come from? Isn't that thing the overlord of Fuzhou Mountain? When the leader of the Black Hawk gang saw the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, his eyes widened. He couldn't believe what he saw. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Since when did the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle come to help humans? Anyone who came close would be killed by the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. No one could fly past the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. At night, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle should be in a resting state. That was why the leader of the Black Hawk gang was here to kill it. Otherwise, he would only need to organize people to enter the mountain to search for their corpses. However, this former overlord was actually helping this human in battle. Who was this human? Hee, you want to rob me? Wait for me to tear you apart. Quick, go and kill that guy. He's the worst. Wang Jing stood on the back of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle and laughed loudly. He had seen how the Black Hawk gang did things over the past few days. None of them were good people. Therefore, when he started killing, he was very happy. Wang Jing was also very happy with this. He killed all the people in front of him and got rid of evil for the people. You're the damn fatty from the blood-gazing tower. Damn fatty? Hearing this, Wang Jing was even more furious. Chapter 77. Kill. The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle seemed to have received some benefits from Wang Jing. During the battle, it obeyed Wang Jing's orders. Then, it stretched out its body and tore off one of the wings of the Black Hawk leader's Black Hawk. As a result, the Black Eagle was seriously injured and fell from the sky. In the next moment, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle grabbed the Black Hawk leader and soared into the sky. Boom! At this moment, his explosive power was unleashed to its strongest state, bringing the two of them up to the clouds. At this moment, the Black Hawk leader also saw the extremely beautiful scene in the distance. That ray of sunlight pierced through the layers of dark clouds, bringing with it endless rays of light that illuminated this world. It was as if it was using its own method and its own ability to awaken this world. So beautiful! At this moment, the Black Hawk leader recalled all the bad things he had done over the years. He deserved to end up like this. Being able to see such a magnificent scene before his death really satisfied the Black Hawk leader. Boom! The golden-winged blue-tailed eagle didn't have that much sympathy. At the highest point, an electric arc bloomed from its tail, instantly blasting the Black Hawk leader's body into pieces. Whoosh! Wang Jing also saw this magnificent scene. He didn't even notice that the leader of the Black Hawk gang had died just like that. He was a little surprised. So cool! Wang Jing would forever remember this shock in his heart. Looking at the sky even higher, there seemed to be no end to it. One day I, Wang Jing, will also fly 90,000 feet high. Wang Jing swore in his heart. As the white crane flew, it absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In addition, Li Zongjio was also cultivating on its back, causing the density of the spiritual energy in the surroundings to become quite strong. Therefore, the benefits the white crane received were naturally higher. Along the way, he didn't feel tired at all. Instead, he felt somewhat relaxed. After about a day's journey, They finally saw the silhouette of Luoxia City at dusk. When they approached the Sunset City, they could still see the magnificent scenery above the city. After all, the Sunset City was definitely worthy of its name. A long time ago, the Sunset City was also a place of wonder. Is this the legendary Luoxia City? I heard that this is the poorest city. It seems like you won't be able to find another city as poor as this one. Wang Jing had been to many cities since he was young. Therefore, he had a good understanding of these big and small cities. The Luoxia City was located at this location. Compared to other cities, it was indeed rather backward. Just the scale of the city alone made it look somewhat shabby. Wang Jing brought the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle closer to the city. Immediately, the guards on the city walls became nervous. Although there wasn't any famous forest of elemental beasts in the vicinity of Luoxia City, some elemental beasts would often get lost and accidentally barge into Luoxia City. Especially when they saw this flying thing approaching, they would become nervous. But soon, they saw the white crane of the Fog Snow Pill sect following behind. Therefore, they gave up on attacking. When the general on the city wall saw this scene, he was also shocked. Because the man sitting on the white crane was the young master of the Li family in the city. It was said that the young master of the Li family had done many shocking things these days. Just the fact that he had killed Shang Quan should have already spread like wildfire by now. In addition, he killed the head of the Sun family and joined forces with the Bai family to develop business. The old master of the Gu family was now training the guards in front of the Li family hall every day. It was rare to see such a diligent person. If the old master was so diligent, the Gu family would have become the boss of Luoxia City long ago. He originally had the qualifications to become a king. Now, he was actually helping the Li family guard the gate. The beast hovering in the sky was at least a level 3 elemental beast. It was a level 3 elemental beast. If it went crazy and attacked, the Luoxia City would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Therefore, they had no choice but to be cautious. But when they saw that the level 3 elemental beast seemed to be brought by Li Zongjiu, they gave up on attacking. Put down the bow. The general on the city wall hurriedly said. Then he summoned a messenger. Quickly report this to the city lord, quickly. In fact, there was no need for the guards to report. Yi Chao of the city lord's mansion had already sensed the aura of the level 3 elemental beast from afar. The people in the city also felt it. This huge beast hovering in the sky. How could they not notice it? Even from 1,000 meters away, they could see it clearly. Oh, amazing! Isn't this the king of the level 3 elemental beasts, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle? You can even bring it back. Amazing! Gu Xuanwu saw the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle from afar. As an elemental general, he could sense it. Lin Song had already gone out to lead the people of the Fog Snow Alchemy sect to deal with the Black Zen sect. His granddaughter was in the hands of the Black Zen sect. How could he let these people feel comfortable? Of course, he had to uproot the Black Zen sect first. Originally, he invited Gu Xuanwu to participate. This way, he could show his face in the Fog Snow Alchemy sect, and it would be easier for him to move around in the future. However, Gu Xuanwu refused. After all, the Li family situation was somewhat dangerous. Now that he had offended the Northern Medicine Alliance and the Su family. Therefore, he had to be careful. What's that? Old He, who claimed to be the 100-mile archer god, also leaped and stood on the roof. When he saw that it was a level 3 elemental beast, he immediately became nervous. Damn, a level 3 elemental beast is here and you guys are still here looking at the scenery? Where's my bow? Watch me, the 100-mile archer god, shoot it down. Old He said. This is a level 3 elemental beast. Even if you go all out, you won't be able to hurt it. Zhu Yan also jumped on the roof and said. Beside him, there was another person. It was the head of the Li family, Li Tianqing. Such a big commotion. Naturally, Li Tianqing also sensed it. Of course, he had to jump out personally to see what was going on. When he saw the level 3 elemental beast attacking, he was also a little nervous. However, when he saw that Gu Xuanwu didn't move, he relaxed. Even an elemental general expert didn't panic. Then what was there to panic about? Then he saw Li Zongjio, who was riding a white crane, slowly approaching. So it's this kid? Li Tianqing couldn't help but laugh. Only this guy could cause such a big commotion in the city. Chapter 78. According to the rules, flying was prohibited above the city. Especially these powerful meta beasts, which could easily cause panic and uneasiness. At the same time, the people in the city lord's mansion were extremely uneasy. This was the main point. There was a feeling of being threatened. However, Li Zongjio was not bound by these rules. He was the unparalleled evil lord. What was wrong with riding a bird into the city? Even if he rode the city lord out of the city lord would still have to obediently lie on the ground. This was Li Zongjio's pride. Although he had to keep a low profile after his rebirth, Li Zongjio, who was already used to it, did not feel that it was a high-profile thing. Instead, it was an extremely normal thing to do. Therefore, Li Zongjio directly rode the white crane and the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle and landed in the Li Mansion. The Li Mansion's empty space needed to be expanded. Fortunately, it was not small to begin with. After the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle landed, it was able to move around a little. However, if the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle wanted to live in the Li Mansion, it would still need to build a bird forest for it. Father, old Master Gu, you are all here. After Li Zongjio landed, he said to Li Tianqing and the others. Zhu Yan also went forward to greet them. So this is your clan? It looks really small. Wang Jing jumped down from the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's back, carrying a bag on his shoulder. He looked left and right, and under his scrutiny, it gave the others a lot of pressure. After all, this Wang Jing looked so young and honest. However, this was a level 3 meta beast. It was not something that could be easily obtained. What kind of person could ride on the back of a level 3 meta beast? Zongjio, this is... Li Tianqing took the lead and asked Li Zongjio to introduce them. Oh, this is a friend that I invited from the Water Jade City. His name is Wang Jing, and he is an alchemy master. Li Zongjio said, looking at Wang Jing. When Wang Jing heard Li Zongjio's introduction of himself, he suddenly felt that someone was constantly pasting the golden piece on his face. It was the kind that had its own radiance. It was such a pride. Wait a minute, an alchemy master. So young. Even Wang Jing himself didn't believe this, let alone Gu Xuanwu and Li Tianqing. Such a young alchemy grandmaster should be very famous. Why haven't I heard of this name before? But since it was Li Zongjio who said it, it should not be far from the truth. Gu Xuanwu and the others cast their admiring gazes at him. This made Wang Jing a little uncomfortable. Don't listen to his nonsense. Hello, everyone. I'm Wang Jing. I only know some small skills. I'm also very good at chopping firewood and washing dishes. Thank you for your guidance in the future. Wang Jing did not directly deny his identity. After all, it was alchemy. Wang Jing could be said to be self-taught. He even felt that those alchemists who were more than 10 years older than him were all just trash. Because Wang Jing had once obtained a pill formula, he could basically know how to refine it at a glance. Most importantly, Wang Jing's alchemy fire could help him create his own pill formula. This was the most awesome part. Wang Jing could refine pills himself. In the case of not having a pill formula, he could refine pills according to the combination of the herbs in front of him. This kind of understanding and comprehension was innate. It was an ability that no one could imitate. Even Li Zongjio was very envious of Wang Jing. Wang Jing's talent was here, but because there was no good environment to display and learn, the path of growth was very difficult. But there would be a day when he would soar to the sky. Therefore, in the days to come, Wang Jing would soar to the sky and become an alchemist who stood at the pinnacle of alchemy. It was very modest to say that he was an alchemy master. It's an honor to meet you. Mr. Wang, you can stay in our Li family for the time being. Tomorrow, I will ask someone to prepare a courtyard for you. Li Tianqing quickly said. This was an alchemy master. Their Li family was an alchemy family, so they naturally knew the importance of this. Therefore, their attitude was so respectful. Don't be so polite, don't be so polite. Wang Jing's mouth was almost crooked. However, he had just arrived at the Li family and did not know what Li Zongjiao's intention was to capture him. Although these people were respectful to him, after all, he always felt that he was not so free. In comparison, freedom was more desirable. Of course, if there was delicious food here, it was very worthwhile. Big brother, Xiaoya, she is dying. Suddenly, Sha Shou ran from a distance and said in a panic. She was dying. Hearing that something had happened to Xiaoya, Zhu Yan and Lao He immediately rushed to Xiaoya's residence. Li Zongjio frowned when he heard this. Wasn't this too fast? It was so much faster than what he had calculated. Immediately, Li Zongjio flicked his sleeves. Let's go! When Li Zongjio and the others arrived at Xiaoya's courtyard, in front of Xiaoya's door, 2 maids were unconscious and fell to the ground. Take them away and treat them, Li Tianqing said. Immediately, the Li family's guards came forward and carried the 2 maids away. Sha Shou went forward and wanted to open the door. However, as soon as he got close, he was directly sent flying by a tyrannical force. Boom! Sha Shou's body was directly sent flying dozens of meters high and directly smashed to the ground with a plop. What? Seeing this scene, Zhu Yan and the others became nervous. They looked around and saw no one. Gu Xuanwu frowned. Mental energy. These people suddenly came to the Li family 2 days ago, saying that they were introduced by Li Zongjio. At that time, Gu Xuanwu didn't see anything special about these people. Li Zongjio couldn't have let them come here without a reason. Now, when he felt the majestic spiritual energy, he was shocked. Gu Xuanwu finally understood why Li Zongjio let these people come to the Li family. It was because the little girl was also a mental energy master. Moreover, this innate mental energy seemed to be very strong. Don't go near the door. This room is already covered by a tyrannical mental energy. This is a self-protection state. Anyone who comes close will be treated as an enemy and sent flying. Gu Xuanwu said in a deep voice. Such a strong mental energy was even stronger than Shang Quan's. Now, it was already at this stage of self-protection. If this mental energy entered a berserk state, it was probably the Li family's people. All of them would die. It actually exploded in advance. You guys step back, Li Zongjio said and then quickly stepped forward. Chapter 79. Zhu Yan and the rest knew that the situation wasn't good. This was the first time they had seen such a situation. In the past, when the spirit fell into such a state, it wasn't so intense. At that time, with their cultivation, they were able to resist the attack and send the people to the medical center. But now, Xiaoya's situation seemed to be unusual. Facing such a situation, they were helpless and could only listen to Li Zongjio's orders. Hide behind me, Gu Xuanwu said. Gu Xuanwu said. The appearance of this mental energy was extraordinary. If it suddenly went berserk, there were very few people who could withstand this mental energy. If he hid behind this general, he would at least be able to keep his life. This is mental energy. It's so strong. Wang Jing felt the surging power. For Wang Jing, this mental energy was very unfamiliar, but he more or less understood it. At this moment, Wang Jing and the rest's eyes fell on Li Zongjio. Facing this terrifying mental energy, what kind of method would Li Zongjio use to solve this? Arriving in front of the house. This was a sign of the extreme expansion of mental energy. Xiaoya's mental energy was too terrifying, but she didn't have the time to learn how to control her mental energy. When the mental energy continued to surge, there would always be a moment when it would engulf Xiaoya. At this moment, Xiaoya still had a trace of consciousness. When this consciousness was engulfed, she would either die or the mental energy would burst out crazily. Like a volcanic eruption, it would reap the lives of people within 100 meters. White dragon appear. Li Zongjio's origin bead trembled slightly. Suddenly, a dragon mark flashed in Li Zongjio's eyes. Following the appearance of the dragon mark, Li Zongjio's body became relaxed under the suppression of the mental energy. So strong. When Li Zongjio unleashed the white dragon original spirit, he had already seen Xiaoya's spiritual original spirit. It was actually a 1,000-year-old water lily. At this moment, This water lily had wrapped its vines around the entire house and appeared on the roof. It seemed to be in great pain. The host's lack of strength was also an extremely painful thing for the primordial spirit, because they couldn't use their powers. When it sensed Li Zongjiu's approach, the 1,000-year water lily emitted a murderous intent. It glared at Li Zongjiu as though it wanted to strangle Li Zongjiu to death. "Put away your arrogance in front of me." Li Zongjiu had seen all kinds of powerhouses. Although the 1,000-year water lily was powerful, it was still a weak creature in front of a 3,000-year-old freak like Li Zongjiu. Immediately, the white dragon roared and circled above the roof. Roar! The dragon roar was like a thunderbolt in a clear sky. Gu Xuanwu and the rest who didn't see the white dragon's figure felt a gust of cold wind whizzing towards them. They couldn't help but circulate their yuan power, but they still felt an intense pain in their heads. What a powerful battle! Although we didn't see anything, we will definitely be smashed to pieces if we get close. Gu Xuanwu roared. After all, the confrontation before their eyes was invisible. Due to their insufficient mind power, they simply couldn't see the intensity of the confrontation clearly. However, the Yuan generals could still vaguely sense the danger and ferociousness of this situation. Li Zongjiu seemed to be standing on the spot without moving, but in reality, the pressure he was enduring was definitely not small. Crack, crack. The floor beneath Li Zongjiu's feet suddenly shattered. When they saw this scene, everyone was startled. Is it really that mystical? Wang Jing couldn't help but exclaim. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? They were just standing on the spot without moving, but the floor cracked? Boom! The wall beside the crowd instantly rumbled loudly. It was directly blown to pieces. Fuck! Is there some danger in here? Let's quickly retreat. Wang Jing was startled by the wall beside him. Such a terrifying situation had occurred. If they were accidentally blown to death, what would they do? Who could they find to reason with? However, when Wang Jing saw that these people didn't move, he felt embarrassed to retreat. Li Zongjiu's white dragon and the Millennium Water Lily fought for a while. Soon, the Millennium Water Lily was suppressed. While the two of them were entangled, Li Zongjiu also quickly stepped forward and pushed the door open. Then, his figure flashed and rushed in. Xiaoya directly fell to the ground. She should have been sitting in front of the table embroidering. However, Xiaoya couldn't withstand the mental energy that suddenly went berserk. She directly fainted. If we were a little later, this girl would probably become crazy. Li Zongjiu helped Xiaoya up. Then he used the mental energy technique of the Heavenly Void Divine Record to control Xiaoya's mental state. This way, she wouldn't go berserk. At this moment, Xiaoya's mental state was extremely chaotic. That was why such a situation occurred. Li Zongjiu injected his origin energy into Xiaoya's body. As if it sensed that its host's body was being disturbed by external forces, the Millennium Water Lily suddenly went berserk. If it wasn't for the white dragon's powerful aura, it wouldn't have been counterattacked by the Millennium Water Lily. Instead, it would have completely suppressed the Millennium Water Lily. A mere water lily wanted to rebel. First of all, in terms of origin spirit level, it wasn't enough to be beaten up by the white dragon. After Li Zongjiu's origin energy flowed into Xiaoya's body, it helped Xiaoya to calm down the chaos in her body. It gradually adjusted her aura and calmed her down. As Xiaoya's body calmed down. At this moment, the Millennium Water Lily also seemed to have gradually fallen into a deep sleep. Such an origin spirit can actually have such an effect. If the water lily wakes up, it will be comparable to a Yuan general level expert. Naturally, it wouldn't be affected when it sleeps normally. Li Zongjiu was also surprised that such a natural origin spirit would appear. However, it seemed that the natural origin spirit wasn't so cold. It was just that it wasn't easy for those who had natural origin spirits to survive. Just like Xiaoya. If Li Zongjiu wasn't here today, Xiaoya would have been destroyed. In that case, it was highly likely that Xiaoya's mental strength had been completely destroyed and she would never be able to wake up again. In the end, this body wouldn't be able to withstand such a strong mental energy. In the end, her body would explode and she would die. It wasn't as simple as not being able to speak or becoming a mute or a blind person. When the raging mental energy gradually calmed down, Lin Fan's expression changed. The people in the outside world could feel it as well. Zhu Yan and the others immediately rushed in. Li Zongjiu also happened to put Xiaoya on the bed. She will wake up in half a day at most. When she wakes up, come and find me. Li Zongjiu said. Get someone to make some medicinal soup or something. Her body is extremely weak now. Thank you, young Master Li. This time, even old He was very impressed by Li Zongjiu. However, at the same time, he was also worried. Li Zongjiu wasn't related to them. Why would he help them treat Xiaoya? There must be a purpose behind it. However, Zhu Yan and the others had already reached a consensus. If Xiaoya could be cured, they would be willing to join the Li family and work for Li Zongjiu for the rest of their lives. I also need to meditate to recover. Li Zongjiu bid farewell to everyone and returned to his small house. The consumption of mental energy just now made Li Zongjiu feel that he couldn't bear it anymore. It could be seen that the strength of the Millennium Water Lily was extremely powerful. My Yuan power is still at the first grade Yuan Master realm. It seems like I need to improve it. This is the peak test of the Fog Alchemy sect. If I win, I will have the opportunity to enter the forbidden area of the Fog Alchemy sect, Fog Valley, to cultivate for 3 days. The Fog Valley was opened once a year. Each time, it would be opened for 7 days. The first 3 days will be given to the 3 disciples who have won the peak trials. The other 4 days will be given to the elders or peak leaders to ambush you. For an ordinary person, even a breath of the spiritual energy accumulated in the Fog Valley was enough for them to not eat for 3 days. Chapter 80. The Foggy Snow Elixir sect's status was mostly supported by the Foggy Snow Valley. If these sects did not have extremely powerful experts and top-notch elemental arts, it would be very difficult for them to persist in such an environment and pass down their legacies. There were so many sects and there was no advantage here. Who would want to be apprenticed to a master? It wasn't easy to run a sect these days. The Foggy Snow Valley was the foundation of the Foggy Snow Elixir sect. It was because of the strong spiritual energy of the Foggy Snow Valley that the Foggy Snow Elixir sect could achieve its current glory. Therefore, if one wanted to enter the Foggy Snow Valley, they had to participate in the so-called peak test. But in fact, the Long Herb Peak was the weakest among the 3 peaks of the Foggy Snow Elixir sect. It wasn't very pleasing. If the disciples of the Long Herb Peak weren't rewarded with elixir pills, no one would be willing to join the Long Herb Peak. They would choose to join the other peaks. In terms of fairness, it was very good. Currently, the Misty Snow Pill sect was preparing for this competition in full swing. Those disciples who had gone out to train also returned to the sect at this moment. On an unknown mountain less than 100 miles away from the Luoxia city, Lin Song and the others stood on the mountain peak, staring at the few figures that escaped. Lin Song was holding a broken arm in his hand. That guy escaped. I don't know if I can report back to the sect with this arm. Lin Song couldn't help but feel depressed. Behind Lin Song and the others, broken swords and sabers were everywhere. These weapons were scattered on the ground, and there was a bloody scene and corpses were piled up into a mountain. Standing beside Lin Song was a young girl. Although there were a few scars on her body, the girl still held a green sword in her hand and there was a trace of tenacity in her eyes. Elders, thank you for your help this time around. Lin Song cupped his hands and said to the 4 people around him. The 4 of them were all Origin General level powerhouses. Peak Master Lin Song was an elder with quite a bit of seniority even in Wuxue Pill sect. To be able to be summoned by Peak Master Lin Song, one could see how strong his influence was. Before he broke through to the Yuan General realm, Lin Song's influence wasn't that great. However, now that Lin Song had broken through to the Yuan General realm, it meant that Lin Song was very likely to be able to refine this grade 3 elixir. The value of this elixir couldn't be measured by money. As a result, the usually arrogant elders also became passionate. Peak Master Lin, you're being too polite. Peak Master Lin's matters are naturally the sex matters. The sex matters are naturally the duties of us elders. That's right. If the Peak Master has any instructions in the future, just say it. Those bastards, they're lucky that they ran fast. Otherwise, I would have skinned them all. Each of these elders was more vicious than the last. But when he faced Lin Song, he became kind and amiable. But peak leader Lin, what's the point of holding it with only one arm? The rest of the elders were also puzzled. They didn't know why Lin Song was holding onto this severed arm. A friend of mine asked me to bring it back. Lin Song said. Friend? Lin Yao couldn't help but be puzzled. What kind of friend would have such a hobby to bring back such a severed arm? The other elders didn't say anything in response to Lin Song's words. After all, it was just a casual question. The peak competition will be in 5 days. At that time, Lin Yao's grandniece will have to give a good performance and beat those arrogant fellows to the ground. Given Lin Yao's performance today, I'm afraid it won't be any worse than those fellows. Lin Yao cupped her hands together after hearing this. Elders, you're flattering me. All right. We'll definitely investigate these rascals to the end. Since they dared to touch our Snow Elixir Sect's people, our Snow Elixir Sect will definitely not let them off. That's right. Peak Master Lin, don't worry. The sect will definitely give you an explanation for this matter. Lin Song cupped his hands together after hearing this. Thank you, elders. After the few of them greeted each other, they stood up. Their clones landed on the white cranes of the sect. Their figures floated up and flew into the distance. Boom. After the elders left, Yi Zichen stood up. Lin Song then turned around with Lin Yao and headed in the direction of Luoxia City. Where are we going? Lin Yao couldn't help but ask. I'm bringing you to meet someone and report back. Lin Song said. Speaking of which, it was this person who saved your life. If it wasn't for Li Zongjio, it would have been difficult for Lin Song to find Lin Yao, let alone rescue her. That would have been even more difficult. Therefore, Li Zongjio was a great benefactor to them and they would never forget it. Hearing Lin Song's words, even Lin Yao was shocked. Who exactly was this person that could save her in such a way? At the same time, the arm that Lin Song brought back seemed to be for this person. Lin Yao couldn't help but be curious about this person. Flying Cloud City. Su family. Recently, the #1 business alliance in Flying Cloud City was called the Flying Dragon Business Alliance. It just so happened that there was an empty merchant seat. This also caused many second-rate clans in the Flying Cloud City to become restless. This was a very good opportunity if they could enter the Flying Dragon Business Alliance. They would definitely be able to soar to the sky. Although they still couldn't raise their heads in front of the first-rate families. But in front of the second-rate families, they were absolutely unmatched. It was that domineering. Su Tianfeng represented the faction of the second elder of the Su family. If they could help the head of the family and join the Flying Dragon Business Alliance, they would definitely make a great contribution to the family. This time, the second elder of the Su family cast a wide net to fish. However, he didn't expect that Su Tianfeng, who he had high hopes for, would be carried back by others. How dare you kill the deacon of the Su family? Is this Luoxia City trying to trample on the head of the Su family? When the second elder of the Su family received Su Tianfeng's corpse, an idea suddenly emerged in his mind. Anyway, it was all about raising funds. Since that was the case, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing to find an excuse to earn a huge sum of money? Speaking of raising funds, it would depend on the mood of the bosses. However, it would depend on the mood of the Su family to make a huge sum of money. Get ready. I, Su Huang, will personally bring people to pay a visit to the Li family. The reason why he had mobilized so many people was because he had investigated before and found out that the Li family was considered the #1 family in Luoxia City. In that case, this method of making money should be good. For the second elder of the Su family, the most important thing was to get money. Chapter 81. Lin Song brought Lin Yao to the Li family. At first, Lin Yao wasn't interested in Luoxia City. After all, in the eyes of an adventurer like Lin Yao, such a city was merely a small supply station. There was no use in adventuring in it. What was the point of a place where even a few experts couldn't find it? But when Lin Yao walked into the Li family's gate, she was completely shocked. First, he saw an old man lying on a swaying rattan chair on the training field. As he swayed gently, he was basking in the sun. However, the 40 to 50 guards in front of him were also training nervously. Although the old man didn't deliberately observe them, he could see that these people were very nervous. They didn't slack off in the slightest during their training. What surprised Lin Yao the most was that this old man's strength was actually so unfathomable. This old man's cultivation was actually the same as Lin Song's. Seeing Lin Song, Gu Xuanwu opened his eyes and waved his hand to greet him. Lin Song cupped his fist towards Gu Xuanwu. Judging from this scene, Gu Xuanwu's status and strength were definitely not below Lin Song's. Could this person be the Li family's old ancestor? Lin Yao thought to herself. Even if he was the Li family's old ancestor, he was still a level lower than Lin Song. Lin Song continued to lead Lin Yao forward. When they passed by another courtyard, Lin Yao suddenly saw a huge head poking out from the wall. At the same time, a strong smell of bird poop wafted over, startling Lin Yao. Such a huge bird. When Lin Yao saw the bird in front of her, her eyes widened. Isn't this the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle? Level 3 Meta Beast. This was a Level 3 Meta Beast. Even if Lin Yao encountered a Level 3 Meta Beast, she could only escape with her tail between her legs. If she stayed a little longer, she would be discovered and eaten by the Level 3 Meta Beast. If she was targeted by the Level 3 Meta Beast, there was no need to think about escaping. She could only think about how to die in a better way. Lin Yao wasn't the only one who was shocked. Even Lin Song was shocked. How long had it been? The Li family had actually brought back another Level 3 origin beast. It was inconceivable. However, for Li Zongjio, these things were indeed not inconceivable. He then passed by the area of the pill hall. Things were getting interesting. There were about 20 to 30 disciples of the pill hall. Standing at the side was Elder Li Juyen. Lin Song had seen Elder Li Juyen before. Back then, it was Elder Li Juyen who treated him when he was severely injured. At this moment, Elder Li Juyen, who held a high position in the family, was actually standing at the side like a student, listening to a fatty who was talking loudly on the high platform. After listening for half a day, he didn't hear anything related to alchemy. However, Li Zongjio said that this fatty was an alchemy master, so he must have some skills. If you want to practice alchemy, you must first think about risking your life. If you don't even dare to risk your life, what right do you have to say that you like to practice alchemy? Let me tell you, back when I was practicing alchemy, I couldn't wait to jump into this furnace. Li Yun had been clenching her fists for more than 10 minutes. This fatty had been bragging since early in the morning until noon. She didn't even know what this fatty was talking about. It was all useless stuff. He was talking about things that he didn't know where he came from, but he treated these things as his own experiences. He even bragged that he had seen them at the Heavenly Pill Pavilion headquarters in the palace. He was really thick-skinned. I'm going to strangle this damn fatty. Li Yun's fists were already trembling. She couldn't hold it in any longer and was about to charge forward. Li Juyen also reached out to block Li Yun. Bear with it, bear with it. In fact, with Li Juyen's bad temper, if it weren't for Li Zongjio's face, he would have already picked up a wooden stool and smashed him. Wang Jing watched for a while. Everyone seemed to be in high spirits. It seemed that they were very enthusiastic about alchemy. That was a good time to show off his skills. Since you are all so enthusiastic, let me show you what alchemy is. Wang Jing immediately stood up. His action immediately attracted everyone's attention. Even Lin Song and Lin Yao couldn't help but stop in their tracks. They wanted to see what Wang Jing would do. Wang Jing, with his big belly, came to the side of the training hall and plucked a weed. Let's see what kind of tricks a fatty like you can play. Li Yun had already determined that Wang Jing was a liar. It was just a facade. No, it didn't have any resemblance with this facade. It wasn't worth mentioning at all. How could this kind of trash show off in front of them? Therefore, Li Yun was already prepared to teach Wang Jing a lesson after this. Wang Jing placed the stalk of grass in his palm. Then he pinched the root of the weed. He stared at it for about 10 seconds. The brewing process had indeed taken a long time. Even the surrounding people's breathing had become cautious. Finally, When everyone was about to reach the limit of their patience, Wang Jing finally made his move. Suddenly, a red force in his hand poured into the weed. Suddenly, the weed seemed to emit red light. The light shone brightly. It was incomparably bright and dazzling. It's fire. Oh my god, this guy can actually use alchemy fire. Li Yun was shocked when she saw Wang Jing use this skill. Of course, using the fire of alchemy was a rather advanced technique. However, at this moment, the alchemy fire poured into the weed. It directly ignited the inside of the weed. However, the outside of the weed was not damaged at all. That level of skill was truly unique. When Li Yun saw this scene, she knew that Wang Jing's ability to control fire was very strong. The insides of this stalk of grass had been completely burned away. However, the outside of the weed was still intact. There was no damage at all. This was the ultimate level of alchemy fire. As an alchemy elder, Li Jian naturally knew how difficult it was to control the fire to such a level. This fat man called Wang Jing had real strength. Even elder Li Jian himself would not be able to reach such a level. Lin Song and Lin Yao, who were watching this scene from afar, widened their eyes. Obviously, he was also very shocked by the skill that Wang Jing had displayed. This level of control of Yuan power can be said to be deeply ingrained. Without dozens of years of hard work, it is impossible to reach this level. This person has reached such a level at such a young age. He can be called a monster. Lin Song took a deep breath. At this moment, this was the only thought in Lin Yao's mind. This Li family was really a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. There was a glimmer of light in her pitch-black eyes. She really wanted to see the master of the Li clan. She wanted to see what such a capable person looked like. Chapter 82. Old Mr. Lin, this must be Miss Lin Yao. She's indeed a hero. Li Tianqing strode over. He was just discussing various matters regarding the cooperation with the Bai family. After all, the Li family only had so many people. It was impossible to take into account all aspects. Moreover, such a big market couldn't be finished by just one family. Therefore, it wasn't a bad thing to let the Bai family participate. Hearing that Lin Song had returned, Li Tianqing naturally came to greet him. After all, Lin Song was the peak master of Longherb Peak and a general realm expert. With such an identity, he would be respected no matter where he went. This is the head of the Li family. Greetings, head of the Li family. Lin Yao cupped her hands and said, normally, the head of an ordinary family would greet a disciple like Lin Yao. After all, Lin Yao was a disciple of the Fog Snow Pill sect. However, Lin Yao wasn't a fool. Seeing that there were so many experts in the Li family, she knew that the Li family wasn't simple. Please have a seat. Come, serve us some tea. Li Tianqing said. Zhongjiao is still cultivating. What's the result of this operation? Li Tianqing also knew that Lin Song went to chase after Li Changjiang. The experts of the Fog Snow Pill sect came out. The Black Zen sect could not even withstand a single blow. Back then, Lin Song was only ambushed by those people. In addition, these people's combat power was indeed higher than Lin Song's. After all, Lin Song was good at alchemy. However, when the experts of the Fog Snow Pill sect arrived, these people were killed by Lin Song's group without any hesitation. We've failed the head of the Li family. That Li Changjiang ran away. We only brought this back. Saying that, Lin Song also put a package on the table. It would be too ostentatious to carry a broken arm on the road. When he opened it, it was Li Changjiang's right arm. Li Tianqing looked at Li Changjiang's arm. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Although the two of them were considered cousins, it was absolutely intolerable to sell the family to an outsider and reap the benefits for himself. Li Tianqing had to cut such a traitor into 1,000 pieces. It wouldn't be too much for him to do that. He was taken away by a group of mysterious experts. Even we couldn't catch up with them. However, I don't think these people are from the vicinity. Family head, you should be careful in the future. Lin Song said. Yes, I understand now. Mr. Lin, you must have had a hard journey. Why don't you stay here for a few days and take a rest? Li Tianqing said. That sect still has some matters to deal with. Let the young master know that the quota has already been arranged. You just need to sign in at this peak in time. Lin Tong said. Li Zongjio had mentioned the peak test before, so they had to make proper preparations. Originally, they were going to have a competition among the long herb peaks, and then select the strongest 5 to participate in the competition on the 3 main peaks. Of course, the long herb peak was usually at the bottom. Since Li Zongjio had the peak master of the long herb peak as his underling, he only needed to move his fingers. Therefore, Li Zongjio was directly selected to participate in the peak test. As for the competition on the main peak, Li Zongjio had to participate in it himself. Even the peak master of the long herb peak did not have such authority. After all, such a large sect naturally needed such a fair and just environment. Okay. Li Tianqing also stood up to see Lin Song off. Li Tianqing did not know the relationship between Lin Song and Li Zongjio. If he knew, he would definitely be shocked. However, Lin Song now knew the potential of Li Zongjio. In addition, Li Zongjio had saved his life twice, and this girl's life. No matter what, this debt of gratitude could not be repaid. In the future, if you have any problems, you can send someone to the Long Herb Peak to look for me. In addition, the amount of elixirs provided by the Long Herb Peak will be increased by 3 times. Apart from the cost of materials, there will be no other fees. Lin Tong said. Hearing Lin Song's words, Li Tianqing was really shocked. What did it mean? It meant that the Long Herb Peak would be helping the Li family to refine elixirs for free. To build such an elixir production empire, the alchemists of the Li family were far from enough. However, if the Long Herb Peak of the Wuxue alchemy sect were to help, the efficiency would be completely different. In that case, thank you very much, Peak Master. Li Tianqing was so excited that he almost knelt down to Lin Song. Fortunately, Lin Song's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast enough to pull Li Tianqing back. Otherwise, if Li Tianqing knelt down, Lin Song's life would be taken away. How could Li Zongjio let him leave here alive? The Li family saved my life. These things are not worth mentioning. There will be many opportunities for cooperation in the future. Yes. There will be many opportunities. Li Tianqing laughed heartily. The source of the elixirs was found. There was also a direction to sell the elixirs. For the Li family, they only needed to sit and count the money. This kind of thing really made people envious. However, to link up this line, it was really impossible without the Li family and Li Zongjio. Now, the industrial chain in the Luoxia city could be regarded as a preliminary link. There was still a lot of work to be done. The 2 white cranes were also transferred away by Lin Song. Li Zongjio had the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, which was far more than the white crane. Moreover, the white crane also needed to return to the peak periodically to recuperate. Otherwise, the white crane would not be acclimatized. After all, the food it ate had to be extremely pure. Grandpa wants me to meet the head of the Li family just now? The head of the Li family is indeed extraordinary. However, it seems that he is still a little lacking if he wants to bring together such a crouching tiger and hidden dragon family. Lin Yao had been training outside all these years. In terms of eyesight, she was also very vicious and ruthless. Li Tianqing might not be an ordinary person, but he was definitely not better than an ordinary person. You didn't see the person I wanted to bring you. You should be able to see him next time. This person is the future of the Fog Elixir sect. He is the hope of our future. Lin Song let out the long sigh. It could be said that he was full of admiration for Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's ability and insight were not things that ordinary people could understand. It took him less than 10 days to do so. He had already integrated the market in the Luoxia city. He used those who needed to be used and killed those who needed to be killed. He was never soft-hearted or indecisive. At the same time, although the family itself was strong, it did not allow them to be idle. He directly created so much trouble for the family. He deliberately used these external enemies to bring a sense of crisis to the Li family. Only in this way would they know how to cultivate desperately, to become stronger. born in sorrow and die in peace. Chapter 83. However, Li Zongjio didn't think that way. He was just used to the way the evil lord acted in his previous life. As long as someone had the guts to provoke him, he wouldn't mind crippling them. No matter who they were, the outcome would be the same. Li Zongjio would never treat his enemies differently. At dawn the next day, Li Zongjio woke up from his cultivation. Speaking of which, the 3 innate origin spirits weren't able to help Li Zongjio speed up his cultivation. Li Zongjio also learned the top-notch body tempering technique brought by the Golden Dragon origin spirit when he was free. The cultivation of the ancient Golden Tyrannical body technique required perseverance. Only after a long period of tempering could the body be tempered into steel. Therefore, it wasn't an easy task to cultivate the ancient Golden Tyrannical body art to the pinnacle. In fact, it would take a longer time than Li Zongjio's cultivation of Yuan energy to the sovereign realm. However, this was also a method to increase one's strength. Li Zongjio came to the front of Xiaoya's house. Just yesterday, Li Zongjio had imparted a cultivation method to control one's mental energy to Xiaoya. Ordinary people couldn't interfere with Xiaoya's situation. If she wanted to improve, she would have to increase her strength. Only when Xiaoya could control her mental energy with ease would she be able to survive. At the same time, it would allow Xiaoya to become a level 3 mental energy master, which was equivalent to a general realm expert. Such innate strength was something that ordinary people would be envious of. However, such innate strength also made it easy for Xiaoya to fall into a dangerous situation. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. Before Li Zongjio came close, he could already feel Xiaoya's mental energy permeating the surroundings. Even Li Zongjio knew that every blade of grass and every tree in the courtyard had already become Xiaoya's property. She knew everything clearly. This is a genius? In his previous life, Li Zongjio only had a little bit of luck and talent that surpassed ordinary people. Most of his achievements were obtained through Li Zongjio's desperate efforts. However, Xiaoya had only spent a day and she had already mastered the mental strength training method. She could even be considered to be at the entry level. Li Zongjio was completely shocked by the speed of his improvement. One had to admit that this genius was indeed a genius. A gentle breeze swept past. Xiaoya was dressed in white, and her long black hair was tied up behind her back. She walked in front of Li Zongjio. "Xiaoya thanks young master for saving me." The woman before him spoke. Her voice was clear and ethereal, causing one to feel as if they were in a secluded valley. Even Li Zongjio's eyes were dazzled. This was the effect of mental strength. Unknowingly, it had already caused one to fall into Xiaoya's mental world. This wasn't Xiaoya showing off on purpose. In fact, Xiaoya had yet to master her own strength well. You're improving very quickly, but you can't be too hasty with your mental strength training. Before you completely master your own strength, you're not allowed to use your mental strength. Li Zongjio said sternly. Xiaoya nodded. Her life was saved by Li Zongjio. The elemental formula that she learned was also taught by Li Zongjio. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with following Li Zongjio's words. Furthermore, Xiaoya had already regarded herself as a member of the Li family. She had to stay to repay her debt of gratitude. Of course, before that, she had to find someone to take revenge on. She naturally had to take revenge for her father's death. Xiaoya, you're up so early. Young Master Li, you're up early too. Have you eaten breakfast? I just went out to buy fried dough sticks and buns. Do you want some? The person walking over from afar was Old Hay, who had returned with a bow and arrow. He was sweating profusely. In this group of people, Old Hay was also in charge of the archer's position. At the same time, he also made full use of this position. In terms of archery, Old Hay's strength was indisputable. It was just that his elemental energy was slightly weaker. Uncle Hay, Xiaoya called out. Old Hay was carrying a bag of buns and fried dough sticks in his hand. When he heard Xiaoya's call, he didn't have any reaction at first. However, he suddenly thought of something and stopped in his tracks. The breakfast in his hand also fell to the ground with a thud. You can speak now. Old Hay opened his eyes wide. Xiaoya was originally a lively, cute, and pure little girl. However, ever since the accident last time, when Xiaoya's voice was sealed, this caused Xiaoya to suffer from a strange illness of not being able to speak. The double blow caused Xiaoya to become a child with a lot on her mind. She was so young, but she had to endure so much pain. Even these uncles couldn't bear it. I've recovered. It's all because of the elemental formula that young Master Li taught me. At this point, she looked at Li Zongjio with great gratitude. When she met Li Zongjio's eyes that were as firm as a rock and as deep as the starry sky, she lowered her head shyly. It's really healed. Oh my God. Brother Li, I was wrong in the past. Xiaoya is indebted to you. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Old Hay, will definitely do anything for you. Old Hay immediately patted his chest and said to Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio looked at Old Hay and seemed to have realized something. Old Hay immediately picked up the bun on the ground and hurriedly handed it to Li Zongjio. Little brother, you haven't eaten yet, right? Come take these. Eat more. At this moment, Old Hay had completely forgotten about Li Zongjio beating him up. What else could be more important than Xiaoya's recovery? They had been fighting and killing in the outside world for the sake of peace and security. Now that Xiaoya's condition had improved, it was the best news for them. Keep these for yourself. I'll return to the sect in a few days. Whether you want to leave or stay is up to you. After saying that, Li Zongjio returned the bun to Old Hay. Stay. Of course, we must stay. Li Zongjio did not say much and turned to leave. First, he went to the alchemy hall to check on the morale of the alchemy hall. These days, the morale of the alchemy hall seemed a little strange under the leadership of Wang Jing. These alchemy hall disciples actually came to the wilderness to barbecue frequently. Sometimes, they even angered Li Yun and Li Juyin. They could not wait to strangle Wang Jing to death. The disciples of the alchemy hall were led around like this every day, neglecting their duties and delaying their alchemy. However, after this period of neglect, the disciples' control of fire had greatly improved. This was also the reason why Wang Jing had been able to survive until now. After inspecting the situation, Li Zongjio also came to Li Tianqing's study. Next month is your grandfather's 70th birthday. I have to prepare some things. All right, Peak Master Lin Song said that you must remember to attend the peak test. But how's Li Changjiang? He escaped. Peak Master Lin Song only had time to cut off his arm. According to him, the one who saved Li Changjiang was an outsider, not one of us. An outsider force? He had actually extended his hand all the way here. An outsider dares to behave atrociously in my northwestern region. Li Changjiang will not be able to escape. Chapter 84. The current Li family had absolute authority in Luoxia City. After the last incident, Bai Wuhan and the others of the Bai family had thought it through. If they were to become enemies with the Li family, not to mention the future glory and wealth, after all, whether they could survive in the future would be a problem. Now, they were bound together with the Li family. If the Li family flourished, the Bai family would prosper. If the Li family declined, the Bai family would have to take the lead. Because of this, Bai Wuheng was doing his best to prepare for the establishment of the merchant union according to Bai Luoxue's instructions. To establish a merchant union, one must obtain the approval of the Xingyan dynasty's Ministry of Commerce. Only after the approval could they issue a decree to prove one's status. Bai Family Hall. Bai Wuheng was sitting upright. Bai Luoxue was second. It was enough to see how much influence Bai Luoxue had in the Bai family after her performance in the past few days. The Xingyan dynasty's Ministry of Commerce has issued a limited number of merchant union permits. Moreover, they stopped issuing them in March last year. The only way to obtain a merchant union permit is to acquire other merchant unions. Bai Luoxue said, acquire other merchant unions. The difficulty of this was no different from developing the merchant union into an empire in the small Luoxia city. These words sounded reasonable, but in reality, it was an impossible task. If there was someone in Luoxia city who was qualified to acquire the merchant union, why would they still be stuck here? There was already a lot of discussion below. Bai Luoxue did not pay attention to these people's voices and continued to speak. In addition to the merchant union permit, in order to pass the assessment of the Ministry of Commerce, the merchant union must have at least 7 marshal-level experts. At the same time, they must pay a membership fee of 97 million gold yuan every year. 7 general-level powerhouses were keeping watch. A membership fee of 97 million gold yuan. This was clearly a joke. Ridiculous. My Bai family's quarterly revenue is only 6 to 7 million gold yuan. Just the membership fee alone is 97 million gold yuan. How can my Bai family afford it? 7 marshal-level powerhouses. Even if they searched the entire Luoxia city, they wouldn't be able to gather so much money. If they were to spend money to invite a yuan general-level expert, they would need at least 3 million gold coins for a month's worth of offerings. That's 36 million in a year. An elder in charge of the financial management of the family stood up and said, just these visible financial expenditures were already 10 times or even 100 times more than what the Bai family could afford. There were still many things that could not be seen. After becoming a merchant alliance, just the various departments of the imperial court would need to be bribed. For example, if he did not bribe the Department of Commerce, where would he get the chance to operate? For the small Bai family, it was impossible for him to preside over the establishment of the merchant alliance. And the time that Li Zongjio had given was only 1 year. 1 year might seem like a long time, but it wasn't enough to experience such a huge change. That's right. With our current business situation, it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens to meet the requirements to establish a business alliance. Bai Luoxue said. But after the Li family, we have the support of the resources of the Wuxue elixir sect. As long as we make good use of them, I'm confident that within half a year, the profits generated will no longer be a problem for us to establish a business alliance. Bai Luoxue's words, which were filled with confidence, caused the elders to open their mouths in shock. This little girl who was not even 20 years old. Where did she get the courage to say such words? Where did she get such lofty words? Where did she get such confidence? In fact, anyone would want to establish a foundation when they were young, to create their own empire and establish their own sky. But later on, they realized that such things were too difficult. Their initial thoughts were too naive. Then, their dreams were gradually buried by reality. Now, on Bai Luoxue, they saw her fighting spirit again. That burning impulse. If they wanted to expand their family and develop it into a 1,000-year-old family, they had to enter a state of desire. What could they achieve in their lifetime if they stayed in the small Luoxia city? By becoming an even more powerful existence and acquiring even more powerful yuan arts, perhaps the elders of the Bai family would also be able to become yuan general or even yuan ancestor-level powerhouses in their lifetime. It seemed uncertain, but if they didn't even have such thoughts, they were destined to never succeed in their lifetime. Elder Luoxue, what good plan do you have? Elder Bai Qing said slowly. In the past, the elders of the Bai family would only address Bai Luoxue as an elder. But today, they directly addressed Bai Luoxue as an elder. This showed that they recognized Bai Luoxue's status and strength. It also showed that they treated Bai Luoxue as an equal. Elder Luoxue. The other elders' gazes gradually changed. Bai Luoxue looked at the gazes of these people and knew that she had finally convinced these stubborn old men. They had truly ignited their ambition and had the impulse to go all out. Some time ago, the Su family of Flying Cloud City contacted us. Given the Su family's strength, it wouldn't be difficult for them to become a member of the Merchant Union of Flying Cloud City. Once they join the Merchant Union, they will definitely make things difficult for us. Instead of waiting for death, why don't we take the initiative to attack? Bai Luoxue said indifferently. It was as if she had already trampled the Su family of Flying Cloud City under her feet. Bai Luoxue had even set her sights on the Merchant Union's permit in Flying Cloud City. The Bai family's elders were all startled by the gaze that was locked onto them. There are already no less than 5 yuan general-level experts in the Su family. They also occupy a mining area. The Huangyuan or they use is an important material for forging Huangyuan weapons. Even if they don't join the merchant union, they are already a tyrant. If we want to annex the Su family, we must snatch the Huangyuan ore. Bai Wuheng said. When everyone heard the family head's words, they all felt as if a sharp sword was slowly being unsheathed. After all, Bai Wuheng was the head of the family and had done his best to ensure the safety of the Bai family. Everything was for the sake of developing in this safe environment. In this chaotic world, it was not easy to find a place to live. Therefore, it was rare to hear Bai Wuheng advocate an offensive stance. When they heard Bai Wuheng's words this time, the elders of the Bai family were all shocked. Obviously, the family head of the Bai family was ready to make a move and go all out. It's not like there's no way to get this Yellowstone ore. I heard that the miners in this Yellowstone ore were all forced by the Su family. If we start with these miners, we might have a chance. Another elder expressed his opinion on this matter. However, if we were to attack the Su family for no reason, it would be a little unjustified in terms of morality. This is not in accordance with the rules of the underworld. There were also elders who considered it more thoroughly. For no reason? The young master of the Li family, Li Zongjio, is not an easy person to deal with. In less than 3 days, the dispute will naturally begin. Bai Luoxue smiled mysteriously. The reason why she had planned all this was because Li Zongjio had kicked the door open. Chapter 85. Li Zongjio was refining pills in his courtyard. He couldn't be unfamiliar with the technique of refining pills. As for the alchemy hall, it was handed over to Wang Jing to manage. Although Wang Jing was a slippery person, but when it came to doing things, he was very serious. What's more, there was a level 3 golden-winged blue-tailed eagle watching the fatty every day. Since Wang Jing came to the Li family, he would come to take care of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle every day and bring it a lot of barbecue. Perhaps this was the deal between him and the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, so it didn't directly kill Wang Jing in the sky. It seemed that the price was not small. Wang Jing also knew that even if he sneaked away, the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle would definitely not let him go. With the strength of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, it wouldn't be difficult for it to find Wang Jing. Not to mention, he had already inquired about these heavenly king whales. It seemed that the biggest family in the city was the Li family. Many general-level experts came to seek refuge with the Li family. There was also a very powerful Bai family. They would often run to the Li family for meetings and whatnot every 2 to 3 days. It was obvious that they were discussing something when their skills were not as good as others. That was why such a situation would occur. This was a relatively humble attitude. Could it be that the Li family had already subdued the big Luoxia city? Wang Jing's intelligence-gathering ability was very good. On the second day, he knew the status of the Li family in the Luoxia city. Therefore, without a very good opportunity, Wang Jing would not leave easily. Otherwise, Wang Jing would be in trouble. Perhaps they would have already been killed while they were walking on the road. The Li family could be said to be able to cover the sky in the Luoxia city with one hand. Even the Sun family, which used to be one of the 4 great families, was now reduced to a second-rate family. Every month, most of their income would be handed over to the Li family. Either the Sun family would be destroyed, or they would obediently hand over the money. This was more cost-effective than being directly destroyed. These people of the Sun family could be said to be unable to recover after a setback. Now, the person in charge of the family head position. He didn't even know where this distant collateral relative came from. It was also the Li family who had deliberately supported him. Most of the direct descendants of the Sun family either fled or died. Just as Li Zongjio was at a critical point in his refining process. The smell of blood wafted over. Bang! The main door of the Li family was forced open by someone. Set it on fire. Burn it. Elder Su Huang from the Su clan waved his hand. Instantly, numerous flaming wine jars were thrown into the Li clan. Boom! Boom! The huge Li clan was instantly set ablaze with countless bonfires. The 4 guards who were guarding the door had already been placed on the ground. Looking at the wounds on their necks, they had been neatly cut off. That Li Zongjio, didn't he say that he wanted compensation from my Su family? My Su family has come with compensation. Is 20 yuan sure experts enough? Ha! Su Huang laughed heartily. His voice reverberated throughout the entire Li family, causing everyone to be able to hear it clearly. People from the Su clan. Not long ago, Li Zongjio had killed a deacon of the Su clan. The elders of the Li clan had heard about this matter. However, they didn't expect that these people would come so suddenly and directly kill their way in. They didn't even greet them. They were clearly here to rob them. The guards of the Li clan reacted quickly. A portion of them extinguished the fire, while Gu Xuanwu led the recently trained guards and rushed out. Su Huang and the rest had already killed their way in. It was really as Su Huang had said. 20 Yuan-Shi experts, all of them at the Yuan-Shi realm. To be able to have so many Yuan-Shi experts, to be able to gather so many people, this Su Huang of the Su clan could be considered formidable. Even in the past, the number of Yuan-Shi experts in the Li clan didn't exceed 5. This was the difference between a large city and a small city. With a casual wave of his hand, 20 Yuan-Shi experts would follow him. Although the majority of them were only at the 2nd and 3rd level of the Yuan-Shi realm, with very few of them at the 4th level of the Yuan-Shi realm. Generally speaking, those at the 4th level of the Yuan-Shi realm and above would have the opportunity to break through to the Yuan general realm. These people should be mercenaries recruited from the Flying Cloud City. They would do as they were paid. A single battle, a group fight, would earn them at least a few thousand gold coins. Every expert who didn't come would come. Moreover, everything obtained from the battle would all belong to them. Such a good thing was only for the strong. Moreover, with their strength, any 4 or 5 people could form a team and walk unhindered in Sunset City. With such easy money, each and every one of them rushed out. These were all people who were hired. In any case, the debt wouldn't be counted on them. Therefore, when they acted, they were usually very ruthless. Only by being extremely ruthless would others be afraid of you. Who are you? State your name. Gu Xuanwu walked out and first glanced at the corpses on the ground. These people killed as soon as they came in. If the people weren't dead, there would still be room for discussion. However, now that they were dead, the nature of the matter was different. Before Su Huang could open his mouth, a figure had already walked out from the backyard. Li Zongjio's face was gloomy. The guards at the front immediately opened up a path for him. In terms of numbers, the Li family outnumbered the Su family. They surrounded the Su family's people. However, the Li family members didn't dare to make a move because the people in front of them were all Yuan-Shi experts. If they made a move, it would easily cause great casualties. If they rushed forward, they would only be courting death. However, the dignity of the Li family was here. They absolutely couldn't retreat. If they did, they would lose the face of the Li family. Young master! Young master! The guards all lowered their heads. As the guards of the Li family, they actually let people kill their way in. Zhu Yan and the others also appeared at the side. They had only been here for a few days and they actually encountered such a matter of killing their way into the Li family. If this kind of thing wasn't controlled well, it would lead to a massacre and a disaster. Such arrogance meant that they definitely looked down on the Li family, or that they were a power that the Li family couldn't afford to offend. However, Zhu Yan sized up the other party. Although there were quite a number of Yuan-Shi experts, they were uneven. Moreover, there was only one Yuan-Shi expert. To them, this was simply a piece of cake. They couldn't even defeat a level 3 Yuan beast in the back mountain. With such a lineup, where did they get the confidence to kill their way in? They were all very curious. You are Li Zongjio? When Su Huang saw Li Zongjio, he was also shocked. So young. He thought that it would be a young man. Who knew that it would be a teenager? So young, but already so vicious and merciless, learning how to kill. It seemed that this Li family's bad habits were also very serious. Thinking of this, Su Huang couldn't help but twist his body. I'm already prepared to take down Li Zongjio and make the Li family members hand over the money. What are you waiting for? Close the door. Li Zongjio roared angrily. The Li family's guard immediately understood. Close the door and start the massacre. Oh, you're pretty awesome. Close the door. Today, we brothers want to see who dares to come. Chapter 86. These hired mercenaries had lived their lives on the edge of the blade, and many of them had even experienced death. Therefore, when facing the Li family's guards, it was obvious that these guards had no fighting experience. Usually, at most, they would gather together and scare people. Then, at most, they would fight with some hooligans and hooligans. When it came to fighting to the death, these guards were far from it. After being roared by the mercenary, the guards couldn't help but become nervous. "Motherfucker, you dare to be arrogant here, I'll fuck your grandpa." Gu Man directly picked up a 2-meter-long Guangong broadsword and was about to rush to the front to fight with these people. These guards were also spurred on, each and every one of them was full of vigor. Since these people were so arrogant and had already killed their way into the family, if they didn't take action, these people thought that the Li family was full of cowards. If they, as the Li family's guards, couldn't protect the family, then what was the use of them? "Brothers, let's go." Both sides were about to engage in a bloody battle. Li Zongjio didn't stop them. For a family to grow, it must go through blood and fire. If they couldn't climb out of this bloody pile of bones, how could they stand firm in the future battles? Just these people in front of them were enough to intimidate them. Then how could the Li family be carried forward? Flying arc blade. One of the mercenaries attacked, and the flying blade in his hand spun. Suddenly, the guards in the front row were all cut in their feet, and all of them fell to the ground with a plop. Gu Man waved the long blade in his hand, but this flying arc blade was also very sharp, and directly cut the Guangong broadsword in Gu Man's hand. Clang. With a loud bang, Gu Man decided to rely on his brute force and directly pounce towards the person who had attacked. These weapons were just blunt weapons used during training, and it was difficult to hurt the enemy, so it was better to use his hands. However, after the flying arc blade flew, it actually flew back. What? Gu Man's eyes revealed a trace of light. It was too late to withdraw. "A bunch of trash," The person who attacked looked at them coldly. In his eyes, these people were already a pile of dead people. This Gu Man in front of him was nothing more than an idiot with nothing but brute force. "I'll kill you." There was an ominous glint in Gu Man's eyes. At this moment, he actually abandoned his defense and directly pounced towards the person who had attacked. Even if he was heavily injured, he had to take down the person in front of him. That person didn't think that Gu Man would be so stupid. That blade could have cut off his head, but he still rushed out. Could it be that he didn't have a brain? He didn't even need to fight back because he knew that before Gu Man could touch him, his head would have already fallen to the ground. Whoosh! Clang! Just at this moment, a sharp arrow flew over from afar, accurately deflecting the spinning flying arc blade. What? The one who attacked was a long-haired man. His flying arc blade had actually been locked onto by someone. When he looked over, Gu Man had already rushed in front of him, and a heavy punch came smashing down. Bang! The long-haired man's face was directly punched by Gu Man. The long-haired man only tilted his head slightly. Gu Man was startled. With the strength of his fist, even if it was a bull, it should have been knocked down by him. However, the long-haired man in front of him didn't have the slightest reaction. "With your little strength, it's better for you to go home and drink milk." The long-haired man turned his head, and his ice-cold gaze stared at Gu Man. Then he kicked Gu Man's stomach, sending him flying. Bang! Even if he didn't use the flying arc blade, the long-haired man's strength had already reached the 6th grade of the Yuan Master Realm. The people in front of him weren't a match for this long-haired man. This long-haired man was someone that Su Huang had paid a huge price to invite over. Don't underestimate this long-haired man. Although he looked thin and weak, the way he killed people was incomparably strange. So much so that one didn't even know when he had already killed them. Moreover, he was ruthless enough. That was the most important thing. From the current performance, this long-haired man was indeed very ruthless. "Give me your life." After the long-haired man had sent Gu Man flying, he was also impatient to make a contribution. From his performance just now, it could be seen that Gu Man's strength had reached a certain level. Li Zongjio, the youth in front of him, was the target of this operation. As long as they took down Li Zongjio, these people would be at their mercy. Even if they didn't take down Li Zongjio, these people wouldn't be a threat at all. Seeing the long-haired man pouncing towards Li Zongjio, Gu Man didn't stop. Gu Xuanwu did not stop and immediately channeled his origin energy to attack the long-haired man. Zhu Yan also rushed over. Li Zongjio was their benefactor. How could they let Li Zongjio be captured by the enemy in front of them? Of course, they had to protect Li Zongjio. However, no one expected that Li Zongjio's speed would be faster than them. With a single step, no one was able to catch Li Zongjio's figure. Gu Xuanwu suddenly turned his head and discovered that Li Zongjio had already passed by him. On the opposite side, Su Huang also saw Li Zongjio make his move. Overestimating yourself. Su Huang naturally saw the fluctuation of yuan power from Li Zongjio, a grade 1 yuan master. To have such a cultivation at such an age was indeed something to be proud of. However, in front of this arkwolf, he was only a little white rabbit jumping high. The long-haired man who was proficient in using the arc blade was called Arkwolf. Arkwolf naturally saw Li Zongjio's move and sneered in his heart. This idiot thinks he's infallible. Then I'll let you know the difference between strength and strength. Arkwolf and Li Zongjio's figures instantly collided. Li Zongjio raised his hand, and then there was a bang. His fist collided with Arkwolf's. This power? How is this possible? Arkwolf originally wanted to heavily injure Li Zongjio with a single punch. However, after colliding with Li Zongjio's fist, he immediately discovered that something was wrong. How could Li Zongjio's strength be so strong? Even the explosive power of Li Zongjio's fist was a step faster than an ordinary person's. Boom! Arkwolf immediately felt a sharp pain in his arm. He saw that his arm had been pierced through. The bone in his arm had pierced through his shoulder. This caused Arkwolf to instantly feel pain. However, Arkwolf did not cry out. From this moment, it was clear how strong these people's fighting quality was. Arkwolf also immediately came to his senses. This Li Zongjio's strength was too strong. He did not have the upper hand in this exchange and had to quickly kill him. Subconsciously, he pulled out a dagger from his waist. With the dagger in his left hand, he directly slashed towards Li Zongjio's neck. At this moment, he no longer cared about capturing and suppressing him alive. The most important thing was to kill the person in front of him. However, Arkwolf's intuition was very strong. Li Zongjio's reaction was even faster. Before Arkwolf's blade approached, Li Zongjio had already snatched the dagger from Arkwolf's hand. Then, with a backhand move, he stabbed the dagger into Arkwolf's left shoulder. Crush! Li Zongjio's hand fiercely clattered, and immediately, more than half of the flesh on Arkwolf's left shoulder was directly dug out. Ah! This pain made Arkwolf unable to endure it any longer. He immediately knelt on the ground and roared in pain. Just as Arkwolf opened his mouth and roared in pain, Li Zongjio also took the opportunity to stuff the dagger into Arkwolf's mouth. Gulp! A dagger was directly inserted into Arkwolf's throat. Arkwolf covered his throat and pointed at Li Zongjio in front of him. He wanted to curse, but he found that he could not make a sound. His entire body fell to the ground, twitching in pain. Chapter 87. The most ruthless mercenary in the group, Arkwolf. Just like that, he fell to the ground. This Arkwolf never thought that he would actually lose to this youth. This youth was decisive. Even the elemental energy didn't gain any advantage over him. After fighting with Li Zongjio, the people would always be surprised to find out that when Li Zongjio killed them, it was always clean and efficient. There was not even a trace of Yuan Li wasted. After a battle, they could only feel extremely weak Yuan Li. It even made people suspect that even if he did not use Yuan Li, he could still kill them. This completely subverted their imaginations. Could it be that this Yuan Li was not the main character of China's battle? The Arkwolf that fell to the ground twitched for a while before it stopped moving. During this process, the blood that flowed out from the Arkwolf's body had already exceeded Li Zongjio's shoes. I'll give you a chance. You can kill yourself now. Li Zongjio looked at Su Huang, who was in front of him. This Su Huang was the only Yuan general expert. Apart from that, there were two other elders besides Su Huang who had not made a move yet. Their strength should be above this Arkwolf. Hee, Young man, you're too confident. Everyone listen up. The Li family killed my Su family's attendant. I, Su Huang, came here today to apprehend the murderer. If anyone obstructs me, I'll kill them all. Su Huang gave a low shout. The people behind him immediately became agitated and tightly grasped the weapons in their hands. When Li Zongjio heard this, he coldly snorted. Give me a chance. I've already given you a chance. After he finished speaking, a loud shout rang out from the courtyard of the Li family. It seemed to pierce through the clouds. The injured guards were all pulled to the side. At this moment, an enormous figure descended from the sky. That enormous figure caused the eyes of the Su family members to be filled with fear. Third level Yuan beast. Kill all those at the Yuan Master Realm. Li Zongjio ordered. Gu Man, who had just been kicked away, crawled up once again and charged forward with a roar. Zhu Yen, Sha Lao, and the others also made their moves. As for Old Black, he was on top of the roof, continuously shooting arrows at the Manor Master. Xiaoye did not make a move because Li Zongjio had told her not to make a move easily. Gu Xuanwu also immediately rushed out and chased after Su Huang in an instant. When this level 3 meta beast appeared, Su Huang already had a bad premonition. In addition, there were actually quite a few Yuan Master level experts in the Li family. On top of that, Gu Xuanwu, a general level expert, was also present. The people that Su Huang brought with him were simply not enough to kill. Li Zongjio rushed to the front, holding a sharp sword in his hand. When he arrived in front of a person, he directly pierced the person's stomach. Moreover, it stirred the sword in the stomach, directly mincing the internal organs of the person in the stomach. When some of the Li family guards saw how ruthless and decisive Li Zongjio was, they couldn't help but cast sidelong glances at Li Zongjio. They were the young master of the Li family, but he was actually such a person. Against his enemies, he did not have the slightest bit of mercy. So much so that killing people felt as simple as chopping vegetables. When some of them saw how powerful the people of the Li family were, and how the level 3 meta beast had already sealed off their escape route, they immediately thought of retreating. More than half of their 20+ people died in an instant. When they wanted to escape, they did their best to open the door. Quick, open the door. Open the door quickly. A person covered in blood, holding a blade in one hand, roared loudly. His other hand had already been chopped off by Li Zongjio. As he spoke, fresh blood continued to spurt out. Such a frightening and bloody scene was truly shocking. However, he and a few others were still heavily injured. It kept colliding with the ground in front of it. Seeing that the homicidal maniac Li Zongjio was about to reach them, these people were instantly terrified. Quick, quick! There was a loud boom. The door was finally knocked open by one person. This lineup of less than 10 people fell out. Don't let a single one of them go. However, these people thought that they could leave after opening the door, but they realized that the scene in front of them was truly shocking. A large group of people in white martial attire, holding iron shields, long spears, and ropes. Their waists were tied with rattan armor. In the Shengyan dynasty, family guards were not allowed to be equipped with iron armor. In that case, it was equivalent to forming an army. However, defensive equipment like rattan armor was also very popular. It was the people of the Bai family. The leader, Bai Wuheng, was riding on a warhorse. He stared at these Yuan-Shi experts in front of him. With the strength of these people, they should not have ended up in such a sorry state. However, they were really frightened by Li Zongjio and the others. It could even be said that they did not have any fighting spirit. No matter what, they were people who crawled out from hell. How could such a situation occur? Even Bai Wuheng was deeply shocked when he saw this scene. Plop, plop. 2 heads fell to the ground. When Gu Xuanwu made his move, he did not have the slightest bit of scruples. He did not even show any mercy. The man's head was directly twisted off and thrown to the side with a clatter. The 2 people who died were the 2 elders of the Su family. When Su Huang, who was still fighting with the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, saw this scene, he was immediately greatly shocked. However, even more was the shock and fear in his heart. You actually dared to kill the elders of my Su family. Li family, just wait to be exterminated. After Su Huang finished speaking, he turned around and prepared to escape. However, he was directly hit on the back by the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle's wing, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Then, he just happened to land in front of those mercenaries who wanted to escape. Once you leave the Li family's gate, you are openly committing murder. The dynasty's laws cannot be trampled on. A person who was rather quick-witted suddenly yelled out. Those mercenaries who were lying on the ground with heavy injuries, and some who were even half kneeling on the ground, all came to their senses. That's right, they were already on the street. If these people continued to attack, then they would be violating the dynasty's laws. The consequences would be extremely severe. It was precisely because of such a rule that Su Huang had directly brought people to kill their way into the Li family's courtyard. If they were to directly attack on the main road, then it would be very easy for people to talk about it, and allow the city lord's mansion or other people to have something to use against them. Su Huang had originally considered everything very thoroughly. However, it was precisely because of this consideration that he lost his own life. I will let those who can survive leave. Chapter 88. Li Zongjio walked out with his men. Facing these heavily injured mercenaries, he only said a few words indifferently. Then, he threw out a steel knife and it landed on the ground. These people immediately understood Li Zongjio's intention. He wanted them to kill each other. You want us to kill each other? We won't fall for it. Brothers, the dynasty's laws are first. Killing is against the law. Before this old man could finish his words, his throat was pierced by a sword. This sword was like a firecracker that ignited the remaining people. Instantly, a great battle broke out. Everyone also attacked the people around them. In just a few seconds, everyone had lost their lives in the midst of killing each other. They're all dead? Li Zongjio did not expect this. These people were so decisive and ruthless. They should have at least left someone alive. Young Master Li, why don't you hand this person over to us? We can use this as a pretext to make a fuss. Bai Luoxue stepped forward and said. The person she was referring to was Su Huang, who was sitting on the ground and was heavily injured. Su Huang did not dare to believe that there were so many experts in this small Li family. Moreover, there was even a level 3 Yuan beast. This was too much of a bully. It was extremely difficult to defeat a level 3 Yuan beast. Even if they were at the same level, it would be impossible. Moreover, this was a level 3 Yuan beast. It was obviously at the peak of level 3. Only a Sky Origin Ancestor powerhouse would be able to deal with it. Just this level 3 Yuan beast was enough for the Li family to move unhindered in Luoxia City. Even the strength of the Su family might not be a match for the Li family. There might not be anyone who could stand out and block this level 3 Yuan beast. What do you mean by, make a fuss? Li Zongjio could not help but ask. The Su family has a Huang Yuan or that we need to establish the merchant union. This person's life is the best reason. Bai Luoxue said confidently. Huang Yuan? Is it in their Su family? There's no need to use this as a pretext. Today, I'll bring that Huang Yuan or over. Li Zongjio said calmly. The Su family had killed a member of the Li family. How could he let it go just like that? Li Zongjio's tough attitude made Bai Luoxue and the others look at each other. Originally, according to the plan, with this delay and some tug-of-war, it would take about 10 days to half a month. If this plan did not succeed, it would take even longer. What surprised Bai Luoxue even more was that Li Zongjio had directly chosen to take over this matter. Li Zongjio said without hesitation. Stepping forward, he grabbed Su Huang and threw him onto the back of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. Then he pointed at Bai Luoxue. You come with me. The rest of you, get ready to receive the yellow ore. Being called out by Li Zongjio in public, Bai Luoxue did not know whether he was lucky or unlucky. If Li Zongjio killed his way into the Su family and found that he was not strong enough, what would he do? Bai Luoxue would definitely not be able to escape. Therefore, if he went, he would have to stand on the same line as Li Zongjio. However, Bai Luoxue did not hesitate. He directly leaped and landed on the back of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. "Young Master Li, we are willing to serve," Jian said. Li Zongjio had cured little Ye, but he hadn't had the time to repay him. So now was the right time. Looking at these people, it seemed like they were really going to go all out. This was what Zhu Yan's mercenary team was best at. Follow the people from the Bai family and head to the mine. As his voice fell, Li Zongjio, Bai Luoxue, and the heavily injured Su Huang had already soared into the sky. The speed of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was very fast. It was worthy of being a top existence among the level 3 meta-beasts. Li Tianqing had just exited from his cultivation state. Previously, when something like this happened in the Li family, the head of the family should have been the first to arrive. However, Li Zongjio had appeared and resolved the matter directly. Therefore, Li Tianqing only found out about it later. When Li Tianqing rushed out, he just happened to see Li Zongjio sitting on the back of the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle soaring into the sky. Where is this brat going? Why is he in such a hurry? Li Tianqing could not help but say. Li Zongjio's return this time had changed a lot. Although Li Tianqing also knew that Li Zongjio's personality was definitely not an ordinary person in the future, he had never imagined that Li Zongjio would be able to tame a level 3 meta-beast. Furthermore, it seemed like he was going to settle some scores. Why are there so many dead people? Li Tianqing walked to the door and realized that his Li family had already experienced a great battle. As the head of the family, he was really ashamed of himself. Fortunately, there were elders to deal with the aftermath. They also told Li Tianqing what had happened. What? You're saying that the brat flew to Flying Cloud City alone to settle some scores with the Su family? Li Tianqing could not sit still after hearing the elders' words. No matter what, Flying Cloud City could be considered a true third-rate city. Although the Luoxia city where the Li family was located could barely be considered as a city, it was still barely holding on because there was nothing valuable in the surroundings, so it could only be self-sufficient. The comprehensive strength of Flying Cloud City was definitely more than 10 times that of Luoxia City. Although the Su family was not considered a big deal in Flying Cloud City, it was definitely not something that the Li family could provoke. Wasn't Bai Tianju and Su Tianfeng's childhood companions? At that time, it was because a branch family of the Su family came to Luoxia City to develop. Later on, they found that there was nothing to gain here, so they directly left with their people. There was nothing to develop. Of course, the Li family and other families were already deeply rooted here, so the market was even smaller. However, now Li Zongjio was going to face the true power of the Su family. This kind of existence was not a joke. Rest assured, Headley. Since Mr. Li Tianju said so, he must have full confidence. Gu Xuanwu said. Li Zongjio did not call Gu Xuanwu. After all, Gu Xuanwu promised to protect the Li family, not to help Li Zongjio. In terms of morality, he could not violate the original moral principle. Of course, if Li Zongjio had a request, Gu Xuanwu would not help. After all, Li Zongjio saved his life and most importantly, gave him a chance. A chance to completely turn things around. It was not a life that could only be buried in the soil as it grew older. Chapter 89. That's the best. Can't he have a little bit of a plan when he does things? Li Tianqing was also having a headache. It was good to have such a promising son, but he was afraid that Li Zongjio would accidentally provoke someone he couldn't afford to provoke. That would be a disaster for Li Zongjio and even the Li family. However, Li Tianqing couldn't see through Li Zongjio. It seemed like he had a way to deal with everything that happened. This was what surprised Li Tianqing the most. Looks like I have to train harder. Otherwise, who knows what kind of trouble this kid will cause. Now that Li Tianqing had obtained the Sky Blaze Lion King technique, he also had the opportunity to become a top expert. If he wanted to be the scapegoat after Li Zongjio got into trouble, he could only continue to make breakthroughs and increase his strength. Only when the Li family was strong would it not matter what Li Zongjio wanted to do. Li Zongjio had defeated the most powerful enemy of the Li family when the Li family was in danger. Now, it could be said that they had overcome a difficult time. However, a family couldn't rely solely on Li Zongjio to become strong. They had to become strong as a whole. This was the meaning of a family's existence. Only when the whole group became strong could they protect every part of the group. Other people would never dare to provoke them. This was the first time that Bai Luoxue had experienced riding on a level 3 meta beast. This was also the closest that Bai Luoxue had ever gotten to Li Zongjio. She was only a few meters away from Li Zongjio. It was hard to believe that the person who had almost single-handedly controlled the market situation in Luoxia City and had single-handedly broken the balance that had existed for decades was sitting in front of her. Moreover, he looked so young. This was what shocked Bai Luoxue. Looking at Li Zongjio's face, which was full of immaturity, she couldn't help but wonder how Li Zongjio could create such a storm. What kind of secret did Li Zongjio possess? Bai Luoxue was extremely curious in her heart. However, when Li Zongjio sat behind the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, she realized that Li Zongjio hadn't wasted any time. He had been cultivating this meta beast, absorbing meta force, and improving his strength. He's so hardworking? Bai Luoxue was also surprised by Li Zongjio's attitude. Among those of the same age, Li Zongjio's cultivation was already far ahead of his peers. He was obviously outstanding, but he was still so hardworking. Just as Bai Luoxue was staring at Li Zongjio, a voice rang out. Li Zongjio suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Bai Luoxue in front of him. Bai Luoxue immediately looked away in panic and looked at the scenery in the distance. At this moment, Bai Luoxue's heart was beating violently as if she couldn't control it. Pudong. Are you suffering from altitude sickness? Li Zongjio said with a frown. Altitude sickness. Was it because the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle was flying too high? Was that why she had such a reaction? No. In front, we're almost there, Bai Luoxue quickly said. At the same time, she tried her best to hide her embarrassment. However, Li Zongjio was laughing in his heart. How is it possible for a teenage girl like you to put on an act in front of an old man like me who is thousands of years old? This little girl's thoughts couldn't be hidden from Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio had experienced too much in his previous life. In this life, he was prepared to leave all his energy for this family. In his previous life, he couldn't protect this family well. No matter how much he obtained, it was extremely empty and boring. Therefore, in this life, Li Zongjio knew what was most important. In front of him, there were mountains surrounding it. This flying cloud city was like a crouching dragon in this mountain range. Although there were mountains around it, these mountains had been cleaned up long ago. Many animal husbandry operations were carried out here to feed meta beasts and plant spiritual herbs. Other than that, the surrounding mines and mineral veins had also found their owners. At the same time, there would often be explosions. This was because they needed to know if there were any mineral veins nearby that had yet to be excavated. The area of Flying Cloud City was almost 10 times that of Luoxia City. The number of people in the city was also very large. In the cities that Li Zongjio had visited in his previous life, he had seen cities that were thousands of times bigger than this. Therefore, the scene in front of him didn't make Li Zongjio feel anything. Instead, he felt that it was a little small. Even a group of people who walked out of such a junkyard-like place. They actually wanted to trample the Li family under their feet and knead them as they wished. Wasn't this a little too optimistic? Therefore, Li Zongjio had to let these people know what was called real terror. On the contrary, Bai Luoxue, who was beside him, had a deeper feeling. Bai Luoxue was born in this small Luoxia city. However, ever since she walked out of Luoxia City and saw the outside world, she realized that Luoxia City was just a drop in the ocean. In order to reach a higher peak, one must first change one's realm, starting from one's horizons. If one's horizons were only able to see the mountain in front of them, one would never know that on the other side of the mountain, there were endless mountains and oceans. Li Zongjio saw the ambition in Bai Luoxue's eyes. It wasn't desire, it was wildness. Bai Luoxue was clear about her own desires. She knew what she wanted and didn't pursue it blindly. If such a person succeeded, her name would definitely shake the world and create a glorious history. However, there were usually very few people who succeeded. If she failed, she would die. Boom. Flying Cloud City was just a short distance away. The level 3 meta beast, golden-winged blue-tailed eagle, brought great fear to the city guards below. They even became nervous and wanted to shoot down the golden-winged blue-tailed eagle. After all, Flying Cloud City was a big city. There were rules in a city. Even if you were a cultivation expert, how dare you ignore the flight restriction order? Shoot down this bird's egg. The general of the Flying Cloud City shouted. Just as the general of Flying Cloud City was about to give the order to attack, a ray of light suddenly descended from the sky and landed precisely in the general's hand. Oh no, it's the Sioux family's elder. Put it away, put it away. When the general of Flying Cloud City saw the token in his hand, he was startled. Currently, Flying Cloud City's Sioux family was in the limelight. Recently, they seemed to have caused a lot of trouble and were more active. If Flying Cloud City joined the Merchant Union, its status would definitely rise. Most of Flying Cloud City's taxes came from the contributions of the Merchant Union. Only when the Merchant Union grew stronger would Flying Cloud City become more powerful. Sometimes, these two things complemented each other. In fact, some of the real big business alliances had terrifying financial resources. It was not even a problem for them to control the operation of a city. Bribing from top to bottom was just a difference in numbers. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.